Good evening, and welcome to the Tuesday, July the 3rd, 2018, 7 p.m. regular meeting of the City Council and the Successors Agent. The meeting will now come to order. Tonight's invocation will be given by Reverend Tracy C. Johnson from the Murph Chapel, St. Paul AME Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilman Corey Warshaw. Please rise.
Let us pray. Jehovah, we enter into the Holy of Holies with prayer and supplication. We come and bow our heads with humble hearts, thanking you for the privilege of life. Bless our efforts as public officials. Continue to endow us with wisdom to help your people. Bless this cabinet. Bless all those under the sound of our voices. Give us knowledge, give us joy, and give us peace. And we thank you in advance for all the things that you have in store for us. Keep us and guide us. Lead us to where you want us to go. In your name, amen, amen, amen and amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
The Assistant City Clerk, will you please now have roll call?
Councilman Spence?
Here.
Councilmember Toma?
Here.
Councilmember Warshaw?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wu?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here. Ms. City Attorney, are there any items to report out of closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, there are no items to report.
Mr. City Manager, is there any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is. Item number 13, the alternative transportation model. There's some additional information and data that was provided by staff from our consultant, or not consultant, but our provider of transportation here in town, MVT Transit. So that's been provided to the council. Will be discussed further at the appropriate time tonight.
Okay, we have a proclamation and a few procedures, resolutions that we have to take care of right now. So come on down. Is it on? Oh, okay. Okay, our first proclamation is for, this is the month. Oh, first of all, I'd like to have Nicole Bresciani come out, please. Oh, here she comes. Coming out the back. The month of July has been designated for Parks and Recreation Month. The purpose of this month is to encourage the community to enjoy the many programs in our city, parks and recreational activities offered throughout West Covina. Parks and recreation programs contribute to the quality of life for our residents, ensuring the health of all citizens, and bring family fun throughout the entire year. I would now like to present Nicole Bresciani, our Assistant City Manager, Community Service Director, with the proclamation to share with our entire West Covina Community Service team, who work hard not only during the month of July, but throughout the entire year, thanking them for their continued service to our community and proclaiming the month of July as Parks and Recreation Month. Thank you. You want to say anything? Please do.
In honor of this month, I would just like to invite everybody out to tomorrow's 4th of July celebration at Big League Dreams. The parking lot will open at 3:30 and the gates will open at 4 o'clock. We have a lot of fun activities for the family and a fireworks show, so we hope that you can all come out and join us. And then next week we have our movies and concerts continuing. So the movies actually are taking place at the Plaza, and that'll be on Tuesday night, July 10th. And then Wednesday we will have My Generation concert here at the Civic Center. So we welcome everybody out. Thank you.
Thank you. She might as well stay here. She's going to be the next one. Next up, we have a resolution of commendation for Commissioner Luann Arredondo. Would you please come forward? Tonight, we would like to thank and like to recognize community member Luann Arredondo on her recent service on the community service and senior service. On the commissioner. I will now turn the mic over to Nicole. If she would like to say a little few words. And then we also have, I'm supposed to say this. I'll turn it over to her anyway. She has a few words she wants to say, and she's going to read it, and then Councilman James Toma wants to say something.
On behalf of the City Council and the City staff, we'd like to present you with this commendation. And I know it's been a pleasure working with you personally, and I know that you have dedicated countless hours to the community, and you have a passion for seniors, and you have a passion for giving back. And I know that it was hard for you to step down, but you're a grandma, and so she spends a lot of her time giving back to her own family now, which I think you have definitely deserved. And I would like to pass it over to Councilman Toma, who can talk further, as you were one of his appointees. So.
Thank you very much. This is a little bittersweet for me. It's been a real pleasure having Lou as one of our commissioners. I mean, she's just the most hardworking person you can imagine. True volunteer spirit, true care and love for the community for many years, with a family and all of our obligations. But what makes it more palatable is that I know that she is so involved in community work, whether it's the Women's Club, the Rotary, and all the various things that she does. I know that we'll continue to see her, even if not in official capacity with the city, out there in the community. So we can't say enough about how much we've appreciated all the work and dedication you've had for our city. Thank you so much, Lou. Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to say thank you to Toma for appointing me. It was really great and working with Nicole and all of City Council. I can tell you that with all the differences we might have in our community, the council has been very responsive to questions, has been great when I knock on doors and come back to them and say, this community says they want this, or they need this, or they don't like this. They've never said, no, we don't want to hear it. They've always said, okay, tell us more, and we'll do our homework. So I want to say thank you to the council, and thank you for having this opportunity. It's been fabulous, and especially thank you, James.
Our next recognition is for Fire Captain Brian Scott Gilmore. Would I please have Assistant Fire Chief Vincent Capelli and to recognize Fire Captain Brian Scott Gilmore on his recent retirement.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, citizens, fire family, everybody else is here is watching TV. We're here tonight to thank and honor Captain Brian Scott Gilmore for his nearly 28 years of service to the West Covina City, the West Covina Fire Department, the West Covina community. He's been a captain since 2012. Actually, I'd let you know what I'm doing. I'm going to read off a couple things. I started asking people around about him. What can I learn about him? Because I've only known him for 7 months, so here's a couple of things I've learned. That he's been a captain since 2012. That we had to have this on his last day because he's fleeing the state of California and going straight to Nebraska. I'm sorry, Tennessee. Yeah, I screwed it up. He's going to Tennessee.
The great state of Tennessee.
The great state of Tennessee. You know, somebody must have set me up this morning because they told me Nebraska. I'll tell you who afterwards. And that he's probably going to be wearing orange the rest of his life. They also stated that he is somewhat of a showman, and he likes to perform, which I didn't know. That he was on a Subway commercial, and he didn't have a speaking part, he just had to lift weights to show how manly he was, and firemen eat Subway to be manly and strong. He did such a great job that they invited him back for another commercial or another TV thing where he was an expert investigative reporter or just an expert on crush syndromes. He was on TV talking about crush syndromes, and crush syndrome is something it happens in a traumatic incident. With that, he developed something for some fireground survival. He developed a rap for Grab Lives. And when I give him the mic, hopefully he can do it for us. It was something, so a mnemonic for Grab Lives is something we remember when we're stuck in a fire or we're lost and we can use to get out. And he made a rap so we can remember it. So, like, again, hopefully he'll do that before we leave tonight. With all that, he became one of the PIOs for the city of West Covina Fire Department, public information officer. So you may have seen him on TV over the years talking about an incident that we were on. Another thing they told me about was he was almost shot by the Secret Service.
That's true.
Apparently he was at the National Fire Academy getting some more knowledge for his service to West Covina, where they took a trip to Washington, D.C., and there was a motorcade for the president coming down, and everybody was told to step aside. Well, Captain Gilmore here decided to step out of line, kneel down, and point his camera towards the motorcade and take a picture. And I was told you were tackled by the Secret Service.
They had to come to a complete stop.
They found that, so there you go. So, front and center. So, one thing I did learn right away when I got here about Captain Gilmore was that he has decided that our parents got our names wrong when they named us. Because they just met us, so they don't know us. And he has changed the names or determined what the names should have been for a few people in the fire department, and maybe others too. So I don't know if anybody knows Mike Hamble. His parents got it wrong. He's actually Blake Freeman. I don't see Matt Jackson, but if you know him, you've probably seen him. His name is Russell Cobb. Sean Wise is right there. His correct name should have been Colt Wagner. Now, not only did everybody else's parents get it wrong, but Captain Gilmore's parents got it wrong. He should be Shag Weston. And some parents did get it right. Dustin Worley is Dustin Worley. His parents got it right. They got it right. I don't know if there's got one for me. He's only known me 7 months, or he might be a secret. I don't know. You got to draw it out. Well, you're leaving. So thank God he's leaving, so I don't want to know what I should have been. Well, with that, on behalf of the fire family, the citizens of West Covina, I'd like to thank you and your family for allowing them to have you for 28 years. I wish you luck and God bless in your next chapter. And it's a pleasure knowing you for the last 7 months, and I hope to hear from you over the next years.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, we have something for you too. Our first one right here is from the city of West Covina, and the city council is pleased to recognize Brian Scott Gilmore for over 27 years in consistent and commendable services to the community. July the 4th, 2018. And it's signed by the whole community council.
Thank you, guys.
There's one. We have another one. What? Oh, it's the other one. Oh, sorry. I grabbed the wrong one. Here's one. All right. How about Gilmore Boulevard? All right. So these two are for you. Now, we put you in the center here and see if you want to say something.
Let me set
I don't know if you want to rap or you want to...
No.
That's your...
You know, I'll skip the rap, but I do want to say this. I was talking to my son the other day. He's getting ready to be a freshman at the University of Tennessee, and I was telling him, he's a business major, and I was telling him, he said, Dad, I don't know specifically what I want to do in business. And I said, well, son, what I recommend is you find something that you love, because you're going to spend 1/3 of your life there. And I said, I can honestly say today, 28 years at the City of West Covina Fire Department, that I love coming to work as much today as I did in 1990 when I was a rookie firefighter. And so that's what the advice that I gave to my son. And then last but not least, I want to say thanks to my fire family, my fire brothers. These guys are my brothers. We are a family. And so these guys have been by my side through thick and thin for decades, some of them. And so I just want to thank you guys. Thank the citizens. It's been a blessing to serve the citizens of the City of West Covina. And I truly feel thankful and blessed for my time here. Thank you so much.
Okay, and our last recognition is for PD Computer Service Technician Bobby Corpus. Here comes our chief right now, already. I will hand the mic over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, good evening to everybody, and it's a real honor to be able to honor Bobby tonight. He started about 14 years ago with the department as a computer service technician, and he's just an amazing guy. If I had to use one name for him, it would probably be MacGyver, because he can use a little glue, duct tape, and some wire, and your computer's back up and running again. And over the years, he's been extremely patient with me. He knows I'm not the most computer-savvy person, and sometimes I don't really understand his explanation for things, but it works, you know. The other maybe name I would give to him is one of the most interesting men in the world. And if you get a chance to listen to his story, it's pretty amazing. He's lived on 4 different continents. As he leaves us, he's going to be moving down to South America. And just kind of one fact, Bobby is a graduate of the Romanian Naval Academy, graduating as a navigation engineer. So every day he's come to work over the years, he's got a great attitude. He's always got that can-do attitude. His personality is great, and we truly are going to miss him. So I'd like to turn the mic over to Bobby and let him say a few things. He's not shy, believe me.
Not shy, but since I never had the opportunity to speak publicly, I'm a little bit intimidated here. So over the years, like on one-to-one, on a small group, I told people various stories from various spots in the world where I lived. Like in the 80s, I lived in Africa in 3 different countries. I lived through 9 months of civil war and stuff like that. So this makes it a little different than most people live in a peaceful country. So, but for the past 30 years, I came to US and I was blessed to be part of this most amazing family that I ever had. So now I have to open up another chapter. I need to move to South America, a couple of countries, and then I'll come back. I promise that I'm going to come back every 6 months. I'll have headquarters here, and then I'll tell you more stories of adventure. Thank you very much, and it was a blessing and a privilege to work with everybody here.
City of West Covina and City Council is pleased to recognize Bobby S. Corpus for over 14 years of consistent and commemorative service to the community. July the 3rd, 2018. Signed by the West Covina City Council.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Yes, we will. Now, before we move further, we have a little video we'd like to have the city manager show us about Fire Chief Larry Whitmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. So as you realize tonight, Chief Whithorn is not here this evening. He would have liked to have been here for Captain Gilmore's presentation. Through a competitive application process, on July 1st, over 400 first responders from around the world participated in the 4th annual New York City Memorial Stair Climb. Our own Fire Chief, Larry Whithorn, was one of the lucky few selected to participate in this program. Chief Whithorn ascended the 80 floors of the New World Trade Center in full gear with those 400 climbers. Each climber honored one of the 23 New York Police Department or 38 well, they say PAPD, so I guess that's the Port Authority Police Department, and the 343 Fire Department New York members who were killed on 9/11. The climb also memorializes fallen first responders and military personnel worldwide. Chief Whithorn was actually assigned someone that he was walking or running, I guess, in memory of, and as Kevin Donnelly, who was a New York firefighter assigned to Ladder Company number 3, who was killed on 9/11. Larry made all 80 stories in a time of 27 minutes and 7 seconds in full gear. He also did the run or the climb for his father and our former fire chief, Paul Segala, who are both battling health issues. And as you all are aware, Larry himself has battled with health issues as well. So I think it's a huge milestone, and we have a quick clip. We'll probably play it twice so he gets a chance to see it. But Larry is in his full white turnouts and full gear that he did all 80 stories on Sunday morning. So that's all the clip was on the internet that they provided for each fireman as they went through it. So we got the thumbs up from him, but that's a pretty remarkable task. So we just wanted to share that with everybody tonight to kind of help explain that and congratulate him for that accomplishment. All right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have an adjournment motion. Tonight we would like to adjourn our council meeting in the honor of George Edward O'Brien. George married his wife in 1952 and raised 9 children together. The O'Brien family eventually settled in West Covina, where George ended up taking up several roles at St. Christopher Catholic Church, including the lector, an usher, and a catholic minister. George was a beloved husband, father, grandfather, and brother. Our thoughts and prayers go out to George's family. At this point, I would like to ask the council if they have any other additional motions that we'd like to have tonight, and make sure that the city clerks make those adjournment motions.
Will do.
Right, you got it right. Is there any other adjournment motion from anyone? Okay, seeing none? Okay. Now we'll move on to oral communications. At this time, if you want to come up and speak, we ask if you fill out a yellow card, you can give it to the Assistant City Clerk, and she will call you up, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. If you don't want to speak, but you do want to have a note, we have some orange cards you can fill out and give it to her, and she will make sure that they're put into our notes. Okay? Assistant City Clerk, please call the first one up.
First speaker tonight will be John Shoemaker, followed by Bill Robinson.
Good evening. A couple comments. Yesterday, attended the budget meeting or part of it. And 40-minute discussion on whether we should use the word shall, will, or should. 40 minutes. I mean, it was, and then at the end of the 40 minutes, you put off doing anything. I mean, it was embarrassing, folks. What got me about the thing, though, a budget policy, really? You need a policy that says, don't spend more than you bring in? You need something written down that says, you know, we should really pay attention to what we're doing. We should analyze our financials to make sure we don't hit May and find out that we're $6, $7, $8, $9 million short. You know, if you need a policy for that, you all should be replaced, including the guy who sits in the city manager's office. That is about as basic as you can get. You know, do any of you at home just spend and go, well, when the checking account hits 0, then we'll take a look at it? I mean, just apply what you do at home or in your own businesses. It might actually work. You know, the other thing that I thought was very telling was the comment made that, you know, in the past, trying to refinance city bonds to extend out, you know, to get some money up front to extend payments or whatever the case may be, that we can't do it. That we're basically being told no. You know how bad something has to be that when the bondholders are secured by revenues of the city and the property, they say no? Or come back and talk to us later. What I thought was interesting was the comment that was made by staff that it was, you know, get your structural deficit in order. Get the spending problems resolved. You know, and I realized by looking some things up, about 20 years ago, we had something like a $75, $80 million surplus in the city. You know, so that means 20 years later, we've consistently spent $4 million a year more than we've brought in. So it wasn't just you guys. You know, it's been console after console after console after console doing the same thing. You know, I was just wondering if was there one thing you can add to the policy about, you know, when you close an account, destroy the checks so you don't accidentally send checks to people and they bounce. You know, or sending out a check in general that bounces. I mean, that's kind of embarrassing when I believe a couple commissioners got checks that didn't clear from the city. You know, it's just amazing. And then to hear that there's still negotiations going on with staff for pay raises. You guys really just don't get it, do you? Or at least staff doesn't. You know, I mean, it's just amazing. And then you're saying to the public, some of you are at least saying, we may need more taxes in order to solve these problems. Tell you what, guys, I'll support taxes when you show that you've got yourselves under control. I mean, it's that simple. There has not been a difficult decision made in 20 years by a council. I remember a council a few years ago passed some things in contracts that said, oh, the pension crisis is solved because we've solved it. Now, I remember Toohey, Hereford, and Sanderson regime getting staff to agree some to a 5% pay cut for 1 year. But they gave them more vacation time the following year that more than made up for the 5%. No, I think it was 2.5%. But they gave them back vacation that they could cash in that was equivalent to 5%. You know, at that time I said, that's stupid. And you guys are negotiating raises. I don't know. You know, I just hope you get things in order before something like bankruptcy is the only choice that you have. Because that's going to hurt a lot of people. That's going to hurt a lot of people, and you'll have a nice legacy. You know, you leave the council or you leave this earth, they'll say, council member so-and-so, who was on the council when the city of West Covina went into bankruptcy. So hopefully you fix this. Thank you.
Bill Robinson, followed by Elsie Messman.
Happy 4th of July, gentlemen. I'm resident Bill Robinson. My testimony last night might have created a bit of confusion or a misunderstanding, so I'm here to try it again. Suggestion boxes near elevators with all the cameras around here just don't cut it. Nobody wants to walk to a suggestion box to talk to you folks. We live in an age wherein the NSA knows more about us individually than we know about ourselves. The feds occasionally pressure journalists and reporters to reveal their sources, but privacy is a crucial value. The issue that I discussed was about private communication, and I have here a June 30th Tribune article that talks about a Cal Poly officer stabbing, and it has details and applications about how crimestoppers.org and applications so people can email, I mean, call it councilbackchannel.org or something like that, but they could communicate privately to the council without all the cameras so I just wanted, I'll submit this for the record, but the police department knows how to do this. Getting to the budget, OPED and PERS are seriously spinning out of control, and some high priority decisions are needed to be taken by you folks in short order. Overtime allowances are wholly inappropriate for personnel paid a salary to accomplish a task. Police and fire payrolls and benefits together represent 78% of the city budget. Perhaps that'll need further scrutiny, but all other departments and West Covina residents would be welcome to supply information to the back channel and questions and input to you folks before you finalize the 18-19 budget. Unfortunately, there's a lot of hardworking poor acting today in the local economy. The city staff doesn't qualify. I find myself in a position of greater compassion for the voting public rather than the benefits and salary-laden staff. I think of them as the pampered elite. So why is it that the working poor are heavily burdened supporting the pampered elite? Maybe somebody in this room that's smarter than I am can help figure that one out. Somebody needs to point out to the taxaholics, if any, on the council, that there's never going to be enough revenue to support a hungry staff that isn't well controlled by a disciplined city council. Some communications with council could be accomplished anonymously with these WeTip hotlines, and they could provide you input. We don't want to kill the golden goose and suggestions to help you serve the public interest. This is a simple request, and where there's a will, there's a way. You folks can accomplish this. To conclude, I recommend the WeTip implementation as a council back channel, and read my lips. No new taxes. No new taxes. So that's my recommendation. Time's up. Thank you.
Elsie Messman, followed by Herb Redholz.
I was going to be speaking mostly on the Maintenance District 4. Can I speak about it now? Hearing now?
It's a public hearing, so your comments should be on the record of that public hearing.
At the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, ma'am.
Speak now. Okay.
Herb Redholz, followed by Ray Edmondson.
I give this, at the end of it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. On a lighter note, just wanted to remind you and everyone that tomorrow morning, 4th of July, is the annual pancake breakfast. In addition to the fireworks show in the evening at Big League Dreams, every year we have the annual pancake breakfast at Hearst Ranch, put on and prepared by the West Covina Elks Lodge, 8 to 11 a.m., $5, pancakes, eggs, bacon, sausage, coffee, milk, orange juice. It's always a good time. So hopefully we'll see you all out there for that tomorrow morning. Now my other topic is, for the last week, 10 days, 2 weeks, almost on a nightly basis, there are fireworks and firecrackers and God knows what else going on every single night. We don't know where they're coming from, but we sure know they're there. And tomorrow, the 4th of July, let's face it, it's going to sound like a war zone tomorrow. You know, if you follow social media at all, whatever platform, this is a big concern to the residents. You know, this is a hot topic. And, you know, if dogs could speak, they'd be lined up here to speak about it, because dogs really don't like that. So I'm just kind of wondering, maybe we could get a comment from the chief as to what the police department, what their plan is tomorrow to perhaps police this and curtail it and take some action on it. I know they're going to do the best they can, but, you know, what is if somebody's caught, is there, you know, penalty, fees, fines, whatever? It'd be nice to kind of know. I know they're going to be out there, but maybe we can get the public might feel a little bit reassured if they had an idea, you know, what might be happening, because it's going to be bad. We all know that, because it's been bad for 2 weeks, and it usually goes on for several days afterwards too. So if we could, you know, just my request, if you guys want to follow through on that. Thank you.
Ray Edmondson, followed by Jerry Patras.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Ray Edmondson. I'm a 29-year resident of West Covina. First off, I want to say I really liked the idea last night of having the presentation and then having an extra segment of public comment. I hope that we can incorporate that more going forward in the future. And now, unpopular opinion time. So, over the last 24 hours, I was chewing over the numbers presented at the end of Ms. Lancaster's PowerPoint at the budget workshop last night. And I am not happy about some of the conclusions I'm reaching. At our current trajectory, we're looking at around a $44 million budget deficit by the 23-24 fiscal year. And that might be a little off because I didn't have a chance to go back and look at the slides today, but it's roughly in that ballpark. And if we're just looking at cutting and freezing, that's kind of a lot of money. The $44 million estimate is also predicated on income and expenditures remaining as they are, which might change between now and then. We have negotiations open with, I believe it was 6 unions, it might have been 7, and 2 of them are the police and fire unions. Maybe this will result in lower budget requirements for us, but maybe it will increase our contribution. PERS can come back and say they're decreasing their contribution again and leave us on the hook for more money. Our tax revenue could decrease because of an economic downturn, and our current foreign policy appears to be getting into a trade war with anybody who looks at us funny. And we just got slapped with large tariffs by Canada and China and the EU. And we're looking at auto prices going up, according to articles in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal today. So increased auto prices is decreased sales. It's a hit to our coffers. Decreased tax revenue is a hit to our coffers. But let's say that it somehow all balances out. We avoid recession, all that, any sort of economic downturn, and we just have $44 million in cuts. So I'm challenging you as a council to do a thought experiment. I want you to go home and between tonight and the next budget meeting on the 12th, map out what you think $44 million of cuts over the next 5 years is going to look like. Whatever cuts you want to make that are going to make those $44 million. And then I want you to ask yourself if that's a city with services that you deem acceptable and you would be proud of. And I don't think a lot of you are going to like the answer to that very much. And the other option we have is the sales tax that was suggested last night. And I didn't really agree with some of the arguments that were made against it. One of the council members claimed the city would use the specter of public safety cuts to ram this through. But last night we cut 6 police officer positions, a forensic analyst. We dialed down our special enforcement and drug teams. We're changing our patrol model. That's not public yet, but we don't, I'm assuming that that's probably not an increase in public safety. And fire was a little more complicated. I really like Chief Taylor's breakdown. Fire was a little more complicated to understand, but one of the proposals that was presented was cutting 9 firefighters an engine. So this isn't a specter of public safety cuts. We are making public safety cuts, and we did it last night. And at the beginning of the meeting last night, you spent an argument about who the stakeholders are. You spent 10 minutes on this argument, and then you agreed that I think the general consensus was the residents or the stakeholders. So let us make the decision. You're not raising taxes because you can't raise taxes, but you can present a referendum of this is what's going to happen if we don't raise taxes, and ask the residents if that's what they want as a city. Leave it up to us. And I have an idea that I think might work as a compromise between the pro-tax and anti-tax factions of the city council. What if we had a tax on the ballot that had a sundown clause or a sunset clause? Like a 1% tax for 5 years, or 1% for 3 years, and we step it down to 0.5% for another 3 years. And we're not solving our problems, and I want to make sure that this is not just a tax increase, it's tax increase, sunset it, with structural problems. We're not solving this with a tax increase. We're giving our patient a shot of epinephrine in the ambulance so we can get to the emergency room with their heart still kind of beating. This might give us an opportunity to refinance or issue some bonds, as Mr. Freeland was saying he was trying to do. It buys us some time for Sacramento to figure out what they're doing with CalPERS, because that's a mess, and we're hoping that that'll get solved from Sacramento. I know that we have some bonds coming in from the 22-22 range. I think it was on the Plaza project or something similar. So we have some solutions coming in the future. We just need to buy enough time to get to that point. And I think a temporary short-term tax could be a good way to buy that time. Thank you.
Jerry Patras, followed by JD.
Good evening. Excuse me. Jerry Patras, about a 20-year resident, and I just want to not talk about the budget. Okay. I don't know who to thank, but north of the freeway is getting tree trimming. And I am on the 10 to 12-year tree cycle, because ours hasn't been, I've lived in that particular house about that long, and yesterday the trees got trimmed. And my neighbors are gonna probably very happy because I don't have to push my green trash can down to their house anymore. I can leave it in front of my house. It had to, it kept breaking the tree or breaking the trash can. So when I called about 6 years ago to the city to see if they could look at the tree, they said it met standards, just move your trash can down the street. So I've been doing that. It's really nice. The company did a great job. Everything went well. The one thing I don't understand, I'm just nosy or curious, is why is it done on trash day, though? I mean, it just seemed kind of strange, because then the trash, Athens did a good job of coming back, but you couldn't really, you know. But thank you, whoever.
JD, followed by Bill Elliott.
Good evening, thank you. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that I noticed there's some resurfacing of the street taking place west of Azusa on Cameron. And if we had the surface street prior, their surface street prior to that resurfacing on Lark Allen and Cameron where I reside, we'd be happy. I wouldn't be up here. But unfortunately, I've resided on Lark Allen and Cameron for the last 20 years, and I've never seen it resurfaced. And we have some major potholes there. In addition to the potholes, we have a dip on the north quadrant of that intersection, which I think has deepened in the last 20 years, to where when cars go by, they bottom out. So large trucks that go through there are vehicles that, I guess due to their weight, you hear them bottoming out and the scraping of the bottom of their car regularly. So if there is a schedule, and we're on schedule to have that part of the city or that area that I reside in maintenance, I would appreciate it. And if not, I would appreciate if the city manager would consider looking into that possibility. Thank you very much.
Bill Elliott, and the last speaker for this evening is Frederick Sykes.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Bill Elliott. Haven't been here in a while. Been working like a madman. I just want to start out by saying it's annoying to come to the City Council meeting. I like to park on the upper structure by the police department. It's easy access to the building, except when the doors are locked and you can't get in. My wife had surgery today, and we had to use the stairs because those doors were locked and there's no access to the elevator. So just because there's an elevator that services this parking lot, that door should be open as well, because it's accessibility for everybody. It's not just the people that understand that there's access down here. Part of the problem is the City Hall, you know, I'm not going to go into the whole point of that. You know, they start an hour after they actually start, and they stop working an hour before they actually leave. That's such a perverted policy. I really don't like that. But it speaks to my next point, which is on the budget, and I didn't get to attend the meeting last night, and I haven't watched the video yet, but, you know, I just wonder when we're going to get to the mindset. you government types, you elected officials, when you guys are going to go, you know what? Let's live within our means. No more taxes on the residents of West Covina. None. And the reason why I say that is because I don't care if it's temporary tax. The way this gentleman was talking about a sunset on a temporary tax. No. You guys never let go of that money. You justify it later, and if not, you, the future city council, will not be holding to that decision, and they just change it. I'm sick of taxes. We pay taxes through the nose. We pay taxes on taxes. Have you ever bought a case of water? You know that little CRV that you pay? I don't know if you ever noticed, but you pay that CRV, then you pay a sales tax on the CRV. That's how perverted California is with taxes. And the mismanagement of the money that is generated by the taxpayers of this city is squandered way too often. And you know, I bring up the In-N-Out truck because it just bugs the hell out of me that the city thinks that we have to buy the city staff lunch to show them how much we appreciate them. You know, there's hardly not a position in this city that doesn't have a lifetime pension connected to their jobs. That's thank you enough. That's not equal in the private sector. It's not. It's not parallel in the private sector hardly anywhere. Upper echelons only. Working stiffs don't get that. You know, another thing, I wish the city council would grow a spine and have a resolution that says no more consultants. We're not going to use consultants anymore. We got a $250,000 city manager. We got a $250,000 police chief. You'd be stunned if you looked at the salary schedule of the city. You know, we spend way too much money on consultants. $29,000 we spent. We might as well have thrown it into the street to find Mark Taylor. Are you kidding me? You know, there was an excuse made about why we didn't get a chief that's pro-concealed carry. The voting public mandated that to the city council. You guys passed the resolution that said we're going to redefine the good cause clause in concealed carry applications to include simple self-defense. And I was told, well, we didn't get any candidates that said they wouldn't agree to that. What? Where did we recruit? We don't know because the consultant did all the work. We have a HR manager here for the city. You know, it's just like everybody wants somebody else to do their job for them, and paying money through the nose, a taxpayer money, $29,000, when any high school senior with a laptop could have found Mark Taylor. It's just despicable, the attitude, this liberal, progressive attitude of tax, 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 tax. We've had it. No more taxes. Figure it out or resign. Figure it out or don't run for re-election, because we don't want you back if you can't solve this problem without raising taxes. Figure it out. Sell some assets. Do something. Have a different mindset where you guys can say, you know, we're not going to spend that money because it's not prudent. When's the last time any of you said that? I mean, I've heard Mike Spence advocate for the taxpayer since he got elected, but a lot of you don't, and that needs to change, or we need to change these city council seats.
Last speaker is Frederick Sykes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, members of the audience. I'm Frederick Sykes, 40-year resident of West Covina, former mayor of West Covina. First of all, I'd like to say a hearty thank you. I think she's already departed. Luann, she's already taken off. To Luann Arredondo, thank you. Thank you very much for your volunteerism. It's too bad we don't have at least 50 more like her. The city would be a lot better off. She dedicates a lot of time to the community and community service groups, and I can't say enough thank yous for all that she's done for our city and for the community. With Anton's, you know, I pay franchise fee of $9.38. So collectively, if you can, I would like to know the approximate amount that is passed through for all the residents from our pocketbooks to Anthony's, and then Anthony's passes that fund, that monies to the city. Also, I think they give $300,000 each year. And at last night's presentation, the budget consultant, she indicated that there was some adjustment in the money from Anthem Services, but she didn't specify any numbers. So if you can, please, could you please answer that question as to what she was referring to? What was she talking about when it came to making adjustments to the Anthem's monies? And if you don't have the answer tonight, if you could, at your convenience, please email me or text me the answer as to what she was talking about. Okay? Thank you.
That was our last speaker. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak and didn't fill out a card? Okay, at this time I will close the consent calendar. Mr. City Manager, any additional comments you'd like to bring up?
Certainly. One of the speakers was talking about the budget policy we spent a little bit of time on last night. Just as a reminder to the public, that's actually something that was recommended as part of our state audit, that we complete that policy. So that's why the City Council and staff put that together, and we will look to adopt it at a future meeting. If I can, I'll have the chief come down and talk a little bit about fireworks as he's coming down. I know our fire prevention staff has been out there in local businesses that do offer a variety of fireworks that are illegal according to our code, and they've actually been asking those businesses to remove those fireworks from their shelves, and they've done so. I also know that there's been some enforcement on the community, and I know we've also been advertising on social media, via press release, reader boards throughout the city, as well as signage in the city about no fireworks being allowed on West Covina. I'll let the chief talk a little bit about the enforcement activities planned for tomorrow and the rest of the week, to be honest.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the question, so tomorrow we're going to be requesting all of our patrol staffing, all 3 of our shifts, to concentrate their efforts in residential neighborhoods. You know, to the police and the residents, it's very frustrating because the lighting of firecrackers is a misdemeanor, fireworks, and we have to actually see the people doing it to take enforcement action. However, you know, we do have the West Covina ordinance. We'll be administering administrative citations to those that we find in violation. We're going to have a large contingency of police officers up at Big League Dreams to make that a safe event. And depending on the volume of fireworks a person has, it may not just be a civil penalty, it may also be a criminal penalty. So the extra patrols, you know, like I said, we want to definitely focus in the residential neighborhoods. And we encourage all the residents to call us. We will get there. We're going to be inundated with calls, but it's really important for us to know where they're coming from, and we just ask the residents to make that call.
So I have one. Our code, as you know, because you've been going, I guess, to stores to ask people not to sell the little poppers, you know, that you can throw on the ground and that kind of stuff. And of course, it's illegal if you were to buy, like at Hacienda Francisquito, which is in the county area, if you were to buy, you know, Safe and Sane fireworks, it's illegal to go down to Francisquito to Baldwin Park where you can let them off. You know, you guys aren't setting up checkpoints to stop, I guess, people that are transporting, even though it's against our law as written. So do you have a focus like on the bottle rockets and the stuff like that, or are you going to end up enforcing stuff against people doing the little popper stuff?
Well, it's not the little poppers. It's obviously.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about our code. You know, this council approved a code that, you know, all those things are illegal, even, you know, possession of them or traveling through the city in it.
I think because tomorrow night, with the volume of calls, we need to really enforce anything that could be life or property threatening. And so the focus would definitely be on bottle rockets, non-safe and sane,
Explosives, yeah.
as well as some of the safe and sane that are still against our policy.
Not so much a question, but just a comment. Also, I think a couple days ago there was this pretty serious incident in La Puente nearby because I know traffic got stopped because a gentleman, 24-year-old, severely injured his hand with fireworks. I don't know what kind of fireworks it was. I don't know if you saw the story, but in addition to it being illegal in West Covina, it's obviously still very dangerous because they had to helicopter this 24-year-old, I believe out of Bassett, because of the hand injury he suffered handling fireworks. So just want to, again, do that as a public announcement. Not only is it illegal, it's obviously very dangerous, so the public is warned.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Johnson, there's a couple other follow-ups regarding the issues on the potholes on Lark Ellen and the review of the intersection of Lark Ellen and Cameron. I saw Mike is up here. We'll look into that matter and get back to the resident on that. There was a couple comments about overtime. Overtime is required under state and federal law, and we are working with the attorney on, addressing, and as well as the city council addressing overtime in our departments. There was comment about lunches for city staff. That had been brought up in past years. That practice has stopped some time ago. Now, if we do have any kind of staff lunches or celebrations, those are paid for or done for through other parties and not through the city council coffers. With regards to the Athens questions, last night there was an adjustment made to the budget based on franchise fees, and that was just based on an overestimation of what we believe we're going to be receiving from Athens in the coming year. So that was an adjustment that was done to the budget last night, a reduction. Yearly, we receive about $1.6 to $1.7 million from Athens as a franchise fee. Franchise fees are collected from trash, the water companies, electricity, gas companies, our cable franchise, and what it is, the cities charge these companies for the use of the city's right-of-way for those fees. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I believe we respond to the questions other than what may be addressed with the rest of the agenda.
The question about the repaving, I know this comes up sometimes, and I recall seeing like a huge document. I think it was a huge document. Is that available in terms of we have we have a list of streets and blocks in terms of what's next coming up due for repavement. Can any resident go to the website to see that? I think it was a large document, so I don't know if it's on there, but how would somebody see where their street or a street that they're interested in is due to be repaved?
I would throw Monica and see if she is familiar. I'm looking at the website now just to see if that's readily available. I don't believe the entire document, because it was a few hundred pages, is available. Public's always welcome to come to City Hall if they really want to see that. But there is a schedule of when streets are to be redone and repaved based on a priority, based on their condition, and as funds are available. And then, for example, when we have excess CDBG funds available, we'll put together a street project in those eligible areas as well. And so sometimes that may change the priorities. But otherwise, I'm not sure if there is, but if not, I'm sure we've done in the past, but we can get something online.
Didn't we have a system where people can look up and see when the tree's going to be trimmed? Approximately, do we have that?
I believe so as well.
So why couldn't we set up a system where people can look up to see what their street's going to be paved?
As I just said, well, if it's not on there, we'll make sure we do so.
Yeah, but I mean, you said the document was too much to put on there, or?
Well, I will see if 300 or 400 page document, if we can scan them, put it on there. Like I said, we'll find something to put on there.
Okay, because it depends. You can just put it in a PDF format. You can put it on there as long as it's searchable. But I don't know. I guess I don't understand the difficulty in putting something up that people can check their streets.
And like I said, I don't have a problem with it. We'll make sure we get something up there.
Okay, next we're going to be going to our consent calendar, but before we do, I just want to make sure I make an announcement on this here. We're talking about the 4th of July. I want to remind everybody before it gets too late that we are going to be having a shuttle running from the senior center every half hour starting at 4 o'clock, 3:30. And remember, you can park at Home Depot there, but there will be no shuttle going from there up to Big League Stream. So if you do park over by the Home Depot right there, you want to park there, you'll have to walk all the way up. So just want to make sure no one's going to be aware they don't park there and expect a shuttle coming down. It's not that we didn't want to have a shuttle there. It's that the property owners, am I speaking out of line?
No, I did just want to clarify something. Okay. We do have a authority to park in front of Home Depot. But there are multiple owners in that shopping center, so we do want to remind residents that to use the parking lot at BLD or to use the Cortez Park Community and Senior Center shuttle, violators may be towed. It's not our property, so unless you're in front of Home Depot or going to some of the retail outlets, I can't say what will happen to your car.
Okay. Now,
I just wanted to add to that. So if you are parking in that area, you will have to walk up Giambi Way. So I just want to remind everybody, unless you take the shuttle, which will only be from Cortez Park, and it will probably run more than once every 30 minutes. We'll have 4 shuttles running from 3:30 until, is it 9:30 or 10?
The fireworks show should be done about 9:30, so it will stop at 8:30 because that's when we have to clear the area for the fallout zone, and then it will resume after the fireworks are done.
And also want to remind everybody that you can bring your own food up there, no alcohol, it's free, and that if you have an ice chest, you can bring that on the shuttle as long as it's not too big, but you cannot bring anything that needs to stake into the ground, so you can't bring tents that need to be staked in or anything of that nature.
Okay, now we'll move to the consent calendar. Is there any council members like to pull any of the items off? 2 and 3. Anyone else? No. Okay, James?
What number? 2 and 3? 2 and 3?
Okay, we want to pull number 2 and number 3. Do I have a motion to accept the rest of them?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passed 5-0. Okay, now the first one to be pulled off will be number 2 by Councilman Mike Spence.
Yeah, I'm pulling this off, and I'm going to vote against it again. It's the independent expenditure thing, but I wanted to clarify something about, I guess, the spending of money based on stuff I've heard with the city attorney, because obviously we cannot control how much money independent expenditures spend in their campaigns, right? Okay, so my understanding is that somehow the ordinance and West Covina does control how much an individual can spend on their own campaign. Is that correct?
If you look at the FPPC website and you look at the state law, it will tell you that they will treat an individual's gifts or loans to his own campaign the same as any other contribution. So as long as we have the same definition of contribution as state law, then yes, it would be limited to the 500.
Yeah. But if I can ask on that, then, what other, if you're running for statewide office or you're running for city assembly, you can loan yourself as much money as you want. There's
that's
different
right.
And so, those limits don't
There's no
apply.
cap under state law. This is a cap imposed by the city.
Okay, so you're saying that our cap, because I'm trying to figure out where else has someone, what other ordinance or what other law has ever limited an individual's ability to spend money on their own campaign? I can't think of one. And so I'm trying to figure that out.
None that I'm aware of, and that's why I said, I pointed out that number one, we're going to research the issue further. Number two, to the extent that our definition of contribution complies with state law and would have that meaning, we can revise that ordinance if that wasn't the intent. If I find state law or case law that says that cannot be limited, then we don't need to make any changes, and I will so advise the council.
I'm one of those people, my wife won't let me spend my own money, her money, on the campaigns, but, it's funny because we all talk about this council keeps complaining about campaign spending, and all we do we don't restrict spending, we just restrict what people are able to give and how they can participate. And now the idea of disallowing an individual to spend their own money on their own behalf to run for something is just, it's anti-constitutional to me. It doesn't make any sense. So anyways, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments on that one, do we have a motion for this item?
I'll move.
Second.
Here we have a first and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Spence?
No.
Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
No.
Johnson?
Aye. Motion passes 3-2. Next item was pulled was number 3 by Councilman Spence.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I know that traditionally we've taken the night off to go to National Night Out and to participate with the activities there, but we haven't passed a budget, and I don't think it's appropriate for us not to have that meeting on August 7th until we've passed a budget, and I don't think we should cancel it at this time. I think we are supposed to do that as a council, get a budget somehow, and I think canceling that meeting would be a mistake. So I'm going to be voting against this item.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I was actually wondering the same thing about whether it's a smart idea to give up that time, that day and time now before we know, because we might. I hope we don't need that day, but I don't know if we should give it up since it's on the calendar.
Well, it's completely up to the city council when they want to adopt the budget and move forward. So we can wait until the next budget meeting to have this item, I guess will be on July 17th agenda. So if we want to put it out agenda, we can. Or you can cancel it, and if we have a budget meeting, call a special meeting for the budget. It's up to you.
So, what do you want you to put it off till the next council meeting?
Well, I'm willing to vote no now, but I'm willing to put it off and we can decide on the 17th if you like. I'm willing to move that we table this to the meeting of the 17th.
I really don't see any reason to put it off because we can call a meeting, the day before, the day after if we want. We've been doing that with budget meetings. We've been scheduling them. I don't see any reason that it has to be done on August 7th instead of August 6th or August 8th if we need it. So I don't see any reason to put this off.
Any other comments?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, okay, we have a first and we have a second. We have roll call, please.
Spence?
Aye.
Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
No.
Wu?
Nope.
Johnson?
No. So it fails 3-2. Okay, so we have a night out on channel 7. Correct?
Actually, you have to have an emotion to adopt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a motion to table.
Okay, so do we have a motion for it?
I move to cancel the August 7th, 2018 City Council meeting for National Night Out.
Second.
We have a first and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Spence?
No.
Toma?
No.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye. Motion passes 3-2. Okay. And that was the end of the consent calendar. Now we will move to public hearings. Okay. This matter is set for public hearing is for the setting of the assessment rates for the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 4, where the city clerk verified proper legal notice has been given.
So verified.
At this time, I shall open the public hearing on the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 4, fiscal year 2018-2019. This will be the first to be presentation of a staff report. Then they shall hear comments from the public. City manager, who will give the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes they say third time's a charm. So we'll see if we get this item resolved tonight. We have Micah Martin for our city maintenance yard, who's here to make the presentation, as well as Representative West Coast Arborist to help answer questions the council may have. I'll turn over to Micah.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Micah Martin. I'm the Maintenance and Operations Manager here for the Public Works Department Maintenance Division. Joined here with me tonight is Nick Alago with West Coast Arborist and also Miguel Hernandez with our Engineering Division. What we're here to do tonight is for the public hearing of items numbers 9, 10, 11, and 12. I will be presenting this information to you guys, here available to answer any questions that you have that have been postponed from the previous meetings. And also Nick is here with our Arbor Access Program, which actually allows us to utilize and access information regarding to our tree trimming cycle and how we manage our tree inventory and so on. So with that, I would like to go ahead and turn some time over to Nick, and we could go through the Maintenance District 4. Yeah.
So Maintenance District 4 has 4,355 sites. You see up here in the right-hand corner. That includes all vacant sites and also stumps. And if you want to see where these are, then we can map these for you. So this is the Maintenance District number 4 area in the city. We can get the satellite view here. Okay, what else do we?
So some of the questions that were asked from the last meeting that continued this presentation was a request regarding how many trees were in this maintenance district, and also the cost per tree. So for Maintenance District 4, the average cost per tree is $190. That's an average cost because it's an hourly rate that's used to trim those trees. So if the tree is a 50-foot tall tree or a 25-foot tall tree or the type of tree, it takes more time or less time to do that trimming. So there's not a set unit price per tree. It's an hourly rate to do that trimming. So the average price for those trees is $190, and that's to cover the 3,400 some odd trees. Do we address any more questions that anyone might have regarding that?
I just had a question. So I heard there's 4,355 sites which are trees or stumps. I don't think we're trimming stumps. How many stumps are there?
Well, I can query that out. The report that I gave to staff only included the trees. But I just wanted to make the comment, like when I pull up a query here, it brings up everything. But for council, I pulled up the actual tree counts, so you were aware of exactly how many trees were in that district.
Thank you.
On the same page about what kind of cycle we're on, and you know, the difference between capital improvement trees and regular maintenance trees. So have those numbers changed?
Yeah, so I could address that. Currently, the maintenance districts are not part of our citywide grid trimming cycle, but we are in an effort to put the maintenance districts on a similar cycle. Our goal is to have all the districts trimmed up within 7 years to match our existing 7-year grid trimming cycle. The reason why I wasn't placed on the grid trimming cycle before is because the scope of work was completely different than the normal grid. But we found a way to manage that workload and that effort, and we plan on having that done within the 7 years to match the grid trimming cycle.
Okay, so that means that money, the capital improvement money, is going to be maintenance money or ongoing maintenance money, or how's that going to work? Or is the capital, what is that? Because we had the difference, if I remember right, I got to go back, but it was significant. It was 50 or 20 versus 20 on the regular, right?
So we have an operating budget for tree trimming, but that budget hasn't always been enough to be able to trim the amount of trees we need to trim each year to stay on top of that cycle. So we've supplemented that budget with capital improvement funds to allow us to do additional tree trimming to get caught up on all that trimming cycles that we need to do.
Right, but I think, yeah, and I understand that, I guess, now, but I guess the question is, shouldn't that, if we're going to be on that kind of cycle, shouldn't that be really in the regular maintenance budget rather than the capital improvement budget? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, so moving forward, as we set the budgets for the following years, the subsequent years, we will be just adding that into our maintenance district budget, our operating budget, since it is an operations function. And then once that tree trimming has been completed, then we could adjust that budget appropriately to maintain that cycle moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, in addition just to tree trimming budget moving forward, there'll be a maintenance district budget for operations for replacement of sidewalks in the district, some minor lighting repairs as well. So those are considered capital projects as well. Now, if we were installing a brand new sidewalk or new path somewhere, that would be considered a CIP. But for ongoing maintenance inside the maintenance district, we will be changing to make it clear that it's actually for ongoing maintenance in the districts.
So one of the things, and I did have an opportunity to meet with Micah, and I want to thank you for the roughly 2 hours we spent on all the maintenance districts. One of the questions I had was the CIP funding for supplemental tree trimming and brush control. And I think in this district, it was roughly about $50,000 each. One is the $50,000 CIP this year for additional tree trimming on top of the monies we're already spending. And the other roughly $50,000 was for brush control. And we had already done in the past 5 years of 1,752 trees. So when we look at the, I think it's 3,900 and some odd trees that we've got, we should be caught up in another roughly 2.5, 3 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That budget's been set aside. If you notice in the staff report, it says supplemental tree trimming and brush control, and that's been divided up equally amongst the two different operations. 50% of that budget is for tree trimming, and the other 50% is for brush control. Two separate focuses of work, but by having that supplemented along with the operations budget, it will allow us to get that trimming caught up, yes.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Yes.
Yeah. What this districts, their boundaries are so strange. What's the district that's below this? It's just I thought it seems unusual that it would go across Azusa over there and leaves this gap like around Gingrich and so forth. What district is that part of it? Is that part of a district?
District 1.
Which one?
District 1.
1. Okay. Thanks.
Was that it? Okay. Madam City Clerk, have you received any written protests, objections, or comments concerning the levying and collection of assessments within the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 4?
None have been received.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this item? I think we did at least have one speaker.
Yes, Elsie Messman.
Yes.
Mayor, council, staff, and everyone here tonight and at home. My name is, again, Elsie Messman. I'm back for the third time regarding Maintenance District 4. But first of all, I want to thank Mayor Johnson for going the extra step to check the graffiti problem regarding the different shades of paint. You all heard the Dolly Parton song, Coats of Many Colors? Well, we have walls all over the city that can relate to this song. Instead of cleaning parks, why don't those employees complete a whole wall in all parts of the city? Mr. Freeland, go out and see this for yourself. If you don't live, I know you don't live here, but we're paying you a salary to do the job. At the last meeting, I gave copies to the council, wanting answers as to why the insurance was being reduced from by $18,000 in 1 year. And also, personnel services for $184,353, administration overhead for $121,000, and best management practice implementation of $75,000 for a total of $381,000. Please explain to me why we are paying these amounts if there is no offices on this side of town. I'd like to see fences and graffiti removed from our maintenance district. Stop robbing our district. It's sad when you are buying a vacuum blower and a chainsaw for our district for $3,600. And we are paying for pest control for West Cove, Vine, Palmview, and Orange. And this isn't even in our area. Something is wrong someplace. Maybe we need an audit, I don't know. We call about the graffiti removal, saving the city from going around the whole city every day. It's about time that staff left the desk and started checking out some of the problems. A perfect example, there's a sidewalk that's at least 2 inches above the rest. And rest assured, this sidewalk didn't jump 2 inches overnight. And this is a real safety hazard, and I think somebody should look into it, because obviously they're not checking the area. They're just billing us for $381,000, and they're not checking anything. They're not going through. And the painting, the same way. And I've called them over. The city of West Covina, welcome to West Covina on Nogales. There's a sign. It's a gray background with green printing. That still has not been removed. I talked to one person, and he said, well, it's in the middle of the road and what have you. Well, if other people do it, I think we can do it too, but obviously it hasn't been done, and what looks like it's the beige paint on the thing. And that's just not, and if you're gonna welcome to West Covina, that's not a very good welcome sign. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Messman, if you have a location for that sidewalk, if you share that with us, we'd be more than happy to look into it. Okay.
Okay, and I shall now close the public comment portion of this hearing and ask for city council discussion.
I have a question for the city manager. So maintenance districts were set up because when these areas were developed, it was decided that the developer didn't want to set up an HOA. And so there are no taxes collected on this to maintain these areas, and that's why maintenance districts are set up to do that. My question is there a way that the people in a maintenance district can say, you know what, we don't like the way the city's handling it, we want to handle it? Can they do a petition and put it on the ballot and vote to start their own HOA?
They may be able to do that. We can easily look into that. If they, the biggest problem with an HOA is that it typically, requires agreement of the more than the majority of the people whose properties are within the association. That doesn't mean that it can't be done. It can be done in compliance. It has to be done in compliance with state law, and it's Department of Real Estate. It's fairly complicated, but it certainly could do it if they wanted to take over the management of these areas on their own, if they properly formed their HOA, and we could certainly do it in some fashion. If it's not annexation, it's some other way.
Right, and any monies that were in there, if that was to happen, would automatically be transferred to that HOA. They would still have to meet all the requirements.
Yes.
Any idea how long something like that could take?
I've never seen it done. I have been involved in the formation of HOA districts, similar to what you're talking about. That process usually is done by a developer at the beginning, and so I have also been involved with HOAs where we were trying to acquire a particular piece of property from all those in the association. It can sometimes be like herding cats. It really depends upon the cohesiveness of the neighborhood and the goal of the formation. But it could take anywhere from, I would say, probably 4 months to never. if you don't have enough, votes for it, so.
And is that a simple majority of the people involved?
It's usually the majority landholder, so it may depend upon the size of the parcels, yeah.
But it's simple majority of the land, not necessarily the people.
It should be, yes.
Thank you.
I do think that's something, that's worth looking into, because if, I would be upset I didn't like the way, when Mr. Mock, I know the council signed off on it, the allocation, the full freight of the allocation of costs, to administrative costs to the districts. And of course, that always happens when, in all these kinds of different districts where it goes to supplement, well, not supplement, but it goes to the stuff in the, in City Hall rather than in the project. So I think they could probably save money as an HOA, and they wouldn't be bound by a lot of the same requirements we have. If there's capital things that we've bought, though, like if we purchased different things for that area, that would go back to the HOA too, probably, I would assume. But I'd be willing to get more information back and then at least give those landowners the chance to at least consider it. Because, things are just going to go up rather than down. But I did have a second comment, and that is, for the last many years we've been using Willdan, to do these assessment reports, and a lot of it's pretty boilerplate stuff, as far as, reprinting all the different things they did the last 10 years. There's very little that changes from year to year, and so I question whether or not that's something that should be handled in-house or a different way than just having the same boilerplate stuff, be given to us every year about this. I mean, what's so special about, the Willdan reports that it needs to be done by them rather than the staff?
That's actually something that staff has been discussing, and we'll share it with the city council and update probably in about 30 to 60 days.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other, we have a motion in order to adopt a resolution confirming the engineer's report and the assessment contained in the report for landscape maintenance. Is there any more discussions? I said, we're asking for a motion. A motion's in order. That's what I said. Okay. So I have a motion for that.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. We have a roll call, please.
Spence? Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye. This passes 5-0. Next one is item number 10. The matter is set for public hearing is for the setting assessment rate for the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District number 6. Will the city clerk verify that proper legal notice has been given?
So verified.
At this time, I shall open the public hearing on the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District number 6, fiscal year 2018 and 2019. There will first be a presentation of the staff report, then it shall hear the comments from the public. City manager who will present the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unless there's any additional questions for Mr. Martin, it's a very similar report, and if you wish, we can answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I think the area is a hillside, and they have quite a few property. Between the property, they have a lot of kind of vacant land, and let's I think belong to the city. And my understanding, some resident complaining about they haven't been trimmed for a long, long time. And luckily, I think we react to some of the residents. Finally, after 10 years, we trim the place. So I don't know what is the policy, to trim those areas because it's a fire hazard. And rather than have a resident complain again for so many years, what is the policy for us to treat those potential fire hazard for those hillside of a vacant space that belong to the city?
So with the tree trimming, we talked earlier, we're trying to put that on a grid cycle, but for the brush clearing portion of it, we do that on an as-needed basis. It's typically done annually, and we do that as funds are available. We have the operating budget we use for that, and then we also supplement it with some CIP money. But that's something that's ongoing annually. It's typically done once a year. In the springtime is when all the brush, comes up after the rain season and everything starts to dry out during the summer, so we try to stay ahead of that. So it could be expected to be done on an annual basis, but if there's other issues that persist that need further attention, it's definitely something we're willing to look at and address any specific concerns or needs anybody may have.
If you look at the satellite overhead, you can see all those area. And I know it's not quite update, but if you see it, you can see a lot of overgrown. And that's what the resident complain. And what I'm saying is, they haven't been trimmed for a long time. If you say it's annually, so meaning we trim those potential fire hazard bushes. Annually, we will go over there to make sure it's clean and no potential fire hazard. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Because some of the area is huge. It's pretty. Are you sure we can have that? And the budget to train annually for those areas. If you go to check, some of the area between houses just between horizon or high out, that is a huge area. And unless a major area people complain because this haven't been trimmed for maybe 10 years. And luckily, last year I think we did it, so they're very appreciative. I just want to make sure it's going to be growing again. How often are we going to trade it? You say it's annually. Are you sure we can do that annually?
Well, annually we survey the area and trim, within 100 feet of a property has to be done for fire safety. So that's always done. But then anything beyond that, we use as much of the budget as available to us. We trim everything that we can for that year. And then the following year, we'll trim other areas that we weren't able to get you last time. And we just use what's available to us with that budget, what we could accomplish for that. So not the entire area gets trimmed every year, but we do give that area attention on an annual basis.
Since they pay for it, since they pay the extra for this District 6, so in that way they should have a budget for us. Like you say, annually we should make sure all those areas, hillside, between the houses and up the hill, and that should be trimmed because that is really a torch, potential fire hazard, especially like tomorrow, don't have a firewall, illegal firewall going all the places, that we have to watch out, we don't have to burn down entire hill. So annually trimming, if we can do it, that would be great. I hope we can really do that, annually trim all those potential fire hazard area.
We'll take a look at our budget and see how well we could optimize that moving forward and try to give that as much attention as possible.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure I understand this. Annually, we're making sure that we've trimmed within 100 feet of every single house. And we've been trimming the trees. And it looks like we're roughly on almost a 7-year cycle now with what we've done in this district. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And based on our fire department codes, we trim areas more than 100 feet as needed and as we have funds. If we wanted to do more, we'd have to be charging the people in this district more to go through and trim it all. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. As I mentioned earlier, we accomplish what we can with the budget we have. And our goal is primarily public health and safety. And then, we take care of anything that's left beyond that with the funds that are available.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Madam City Clerk, have you received any written protests, objections, or comments concerning the levying and collection of assessments within the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 6?
None have been received.
Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this item? Seeing none, I shall now close the public comment portion of this hearing, and we'll have some City Council discussion if you want.
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? If not, we have a roll call, please.
Spence. Toma.
Aye.
Warshaw.
Aye.
Wu.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye. It passes 5-0. Now we're moving on to public hearing item number 11. This matter is set for the public hearing is for the setting of the assessment rates for the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 7. Will the city clerk verify that proper legal notice has been given?
So verified.
At this time, I shall open the public hearing on the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 7, fiscal year 2018-2019. First, there'll be the presentation but it's basically the same thing. So if any of the council members have any questions of the staff, let's ask them. Okay.
Exactly same question. Okay, this is a hillside, and there's a lot of bushes areas again overgrown. So your answer would be annually we will trim.
Yes, that's correct. We have contracts in place with the contractor to do all these districts, and the scope of work is the same for all of them, and we approach that the same equally throughout the districts.
So basically, we don't need any resident complaint, say, hey, well, it's overgrown, that we will be there and do the scheduling and trim all those potential fire hazards.
With what we can accomplish with the budget, yes.
Any other questions? If not, Madam City Clerk, have you received any written protests, objections, or comments concerning the levying and collection of assessments within the West Covina Landscape Maintenance District Number 7?
None have been received.
Okay, is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this item? Seeing none, public comment shall be closed. Now we shall have motions in order or any further discussion.
I just wanted to confirm, from what I'm reading here, we've got 386 trees and 374 have been trimmed in just the last 5 years. So by the end of this year, we're going to be roughly on less than a 6-year cycle, probably be on a 5-year cycle for this district.
Yeah, the concentration of trees in this district is much smaller compared to the other districts, so the cycle would definitely be smaller for that. When I mentioned earlier about a 7-year cycle, it was just in general, but these smaller districts, they would be on a much tighter cycle because of the smaller amount of trees.
And with that, the extra, I think we were spending extra supplemental tree trimming, but any of that starting next year could actually go to more brush control in the 100 feet further into those districts from houses. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Once we're caught up on the trimming cycle, we could look at other needs in the area of that district and focus the attention on those. Brush clearing, drought tolerant landscaping, anything else that we could be doing.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, motion is in order to adopt the resolution confirming the engineer's report and the assessment contained in the report for Landscape Maintenance District Number 7. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 2018-71.
Second.
We have a first and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Spence. Aye. Toma.
Aye.
Warshaw.
Aye.
Wu.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Next one is public hearing, item number 12. The matter is set for the public hearing is for the West Covina Citywide Lighting and Maintenance District. Will the city clerk verify the proper legal notice has been given?
So verified.
At this time, I shall open the public hearing on the West Covina Citywide Lighting and Maintenance District. There will be first a presentation of the staff report, then I shall hear comments from the public. City manager, who will present the staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Martin will be able to respond to any questions you have on this district as well.
Is there any questions from the city council on this?
I think we asked them.
I did have a question. I know that we think based on, I don't know how many years back, there's roughly about 29,000 trees in the city of West Covina. And so far, the arborist has identified 18 to 19,000 of those trees. When do we think we might be completed with knowing how many trees we really have?
Well, we have a complete inventory now to pull up all your citywide, excluding the maintenance districts. So, yeah, if the answer to your question, I can bring up all your citywide trees. We do have it now.
So, what does that count? In the citywide?
Okay, we have citywide, excluding your maintenance districts, you have 27,048 sites. Now I'll query the vacants out of there and get you a closer number. So you have, I've queried it down to 22,000 sites, and from there, I can query the stumps, but it's roughly right around 18,000.
And that's everything.
That's excluding, though, your maintenance districts. That's citywide.
Right.
That includes your parks, your medians, your street trees, everything.
So then I still have some questions on the citywide maintenance district, because this is basing everything on about 29,000 trees and trimming. So my numbers don't match. Because it's only 18,000 trees. And so, where are we in those cycles with what we're spending on them? If I take 276,000 that's going for tree trimming from West Coast Arborists at roughly $90 a tree in this district, on a 7-year cycle, I should only be spending about $163,000 a year, and if I trimmed them all in the last 7, how come I'm paying $276?
Micah, you want that? Well, I think a couple of years ago, we provided council with a report based upon a 5 or 7-year cycle, and I believe council opted to go to the 7-year cycle. So the bottom, on the unit price, the numbers were calculated, and you are correct, it's much less, but then there was also some budgets calculated in there for service requests, dead tree removals, and some other unforeseen situations that happen with the trees. I believe that's why the budget was increased from the original counts.
So I'm spending $114,000 extra a year for that, besides my tree trimming? Because I should only be spending $163,000 in a 7-year cycle.
I believe I provided staff with a report on exactly what you've spent per year, per area. Was it provided that to them on the report?
No, the only thing I have is that tree trimming with West Covina or with West Coast Arborists is $276,710. I don't have a breakdown.
Did the summary report that I gave you? Okay.
And then while you're looking that up, how come this report is still reporting 28,500 eligible trees? At the 28,500, it made sense with the 276,000, it works out. But since you're telling me I've only got, 18, 19,000 trees.
Well, if I may answer that, that number of 29,000 trees was probably when this first report came out, it was back in 1998 when Prop 218 came about. And we didn't have a very good inventory on all our trees. Everything was all hand done by hand. So, and now we're all modernized. We all have electronics and everything GPS. So we have a more accurate count now. So basically, we haven't corrected that number in the past years.
Nobody has.
No, we haven't.
Well, and that's why, because this is saying that the city spent on average $237,000 per year, which equates to approximately 4,000 trees per year, which is about 20,000 trees. When I figure the $90 per tree, it should be about 163,000. So I'm just trying to say, why am I, why should I have $276,000 in this budget?
So, Councilmember Wilshaw, here's a breakdown for what we spent on your citywide tree maintenance. So it looks like on the grid pruning, we pruned 3,218 trees at 4840 for a total of 155,000 for the year. So that took care of your grid trimming and your regular tree maintenance. The rest of the money, which totaled a total of about 313,000, was incurred with 52,000 of it in tree removals, which were dead or hazardous that needed to be removed, and another 6,000 for tree-only removals. We also had some service request pruning with some minimal amounts of 484, 990, 132, and then some service request pruning was outside the grid. We spent another 10,000 on that. And then we had some emergency cost of 24,000, and then some hourly cost for incidental stuff for outside of the normal scope of work. And so that gave you your total here of 313,000 on your regular street tree maintenance.
So you're telling me, doing the 3,200, which is roughly close to, the 7-year cycle based on the 183,000, that's going to cost me 150 to 160,000 a year. But you're telling me I'm going to spend another 116 to 120,000 a year for emergency services and everything else. We have that many if I am trimming every 5 years?
The theory is once you complete your grid program of 7 years, these service requests and emergencies will decrease and you won't have those costs. But because we've been behind and we're trying to get caught up with using the grid program, there are going to be some additional costs on unforeseen things. The one that sticks out to me are this $52,000 in additional that probably wasn't accounted for, were the dead, declining, and diseased trees that are hitting all cities with some diseases that are unforeseen to all cities, and we have to address them as they come. So if you notice here on the report here, there's, like I said, there was $52,000 spent just in removals that we normally wouldn't budget for that unless,
And I understand that, but it's telling me in this report, it says, in the past 5 years, the city spent on average $237,000 per year, which equates to 4,000 trees. That equates to 20,000 trees, so how did we miss all of these other trees in the last 5 years that I've spent an extra 100,000 on?
For reference, can you point out where you're looking at, Mr. Warshaw?
Yes, it is on page 4, the paragraph under items, street tree maintenance cost. Starts out, trees are scheduled based on a 7-year trimming cycle. And if it is, how come we're doing it every 5 years?
Well, if it helps, when we started this grid trimming program, we're technically year 2 into the grid cycle. We're not quite really done with everything in grid 2 of that grid cycle. So there's been a lot more additional work to be done there than what we've been able to outline in this report, to be precise. So,
well, what I'm really trying to get at is, have I in fact trimmed 20,000 trees in the last 5 years, as this report is telling me? That last paragraph, in that last sentence of this paragraph, and it says, in the past 5 years, the city spent on average $237,000 per year, which equates to approximately 4,000 trees that were trimmed and removed each year, which is 20,000 trees. And we only have 18,300.
And council member, if you look at this report, that's about right on the money. See, we've trimmed 3,200. We removed, and then we trimmed an additional 270. So we're creeping up there to about the 4,000 tree mark per year. On a 5 years is about 20,000 trees per the 5 years.
Right. So I'm saying we have done all the trees in the last 5 years. We're supposed to be on a 7-year cycle. It looks like I'm still staying on the 5-year cycle, and I should have cleaned out almost all the dead trees. So why am I still budgeting $285,000 or $276,000 for tree trimming? When to do the 3,200 plus a little, the 3,200 per year is only 153,000, as you stated.
Yeah. This was something that I explained to staff too. Each year is not going to calculate exactly to a exact dollar amount each year because there's more trees in a certain grid than others. So some years will run short and then we make it up the next year. But at the end of the 7 years, what we proposed to you, the cost for the 7-year cycles should be right on the money. But
so in this next year, what grid are you doing and how many trees are in there that I'm paying $276,000 for?
Correct. Did we have a count of what's proposed for this year? We're going into district.
So if we did.
And I want to make sure that the number that the West Coast Arbor is providing for the actual tree trimming versus all the other services. Because again, if those services are not incurred, those funds will be rolled back into the budget. But we do want to find out what the actual tree trimming cost is and the number of trees proposed for the coming fiscal year.
Mr. City Manager, can we pull this off to the next?
We certainly may, if that's
because we need to have more information. It seems like the information we're getting is spotty information. Go ahead, wait a minute. You'll be in next. I'll let you talk. It seems the information we're getting is spotty. We can't answer exactly the questions. I'd like to see it come back. Okay.
When it comes back, one of the questions I had is I couldn't find the previous year's budget. I found the 18-19 one. In here, I didn't see the one I compare it to because it went down 3%, but it talks mostly about the assessment. It doesn't talk about what the expenditures were. And then, this, it was brought up earlier, what's the difference between the administrative overhead and the full-time salaries and benefits lines in here? Because we use a contractor, for some of this stuff. So what is the full-time benefits and salaries? Is that supposed to be part of the administration overhead, or what's the difference between those?
We can bring out the details. My understanding is we do charge certain staff members to the districts, the various districts, for their work in the districts. And then in addition, the administration overhead is the cost from City Hall, insurance, so those chargebacks.
Well, there's a separate line for insurance.
Well, there's a separate line for insurance, but there is an A&O calculation that was part of the calculations that was approved by council previously.
Yeah, I remember. And so A&O, the full-time salaries and benefits is for the workers, and then is that how that's included in there?
What we can do is we'll give you a breakdown.
And then how does that work though if we have a contractor that's doing this stuff?
But again, if there's contractors, other work that the city staff is doing in the district, and so what we'll do is we'll bring out a specific breakdown at your next meeting.
Okay, and then did this property and liability insurance go down? That's what I can't tell like it did in the other ones, and why is that going down? So is that because of what? Why do you assume the insurance is going down when everywhere else insurance is going up? And so we can get that information too, but I don't have the previous budget to tell if that's the case in this district.
Okay.
But I'll move that we continue the public hearing on this to July 17th.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Spence.
Aye.
Toma.
Aye.
Warshaw.
Aye.
Wu.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye. If it passes 5-0, we shall move it to the next meeting. Okay, now we shall move to item number 13. City Manager, who will provide his report.
She's coming up. Ms. Bresciani will give you a report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, and community members. So tonight we are talking about alternative transportation. The city currently contracts with MV Transit for our Dial-A-Ride and City's fixed shuttle system. For purposes of the presentation, I am going to focus on Dial-A-Ride as we're talking about alternative transportation. I do want to mention we did meet with MV Transit staff to talk about potentially modifying our current fixed route system. We have 3 lines, a red line, a blue line, and a green line, and the combined ridership of the green line, or the red line and the blue line, pretty much total what the green line is. One of the concerns that we have is that because of the decreased ridership that we've seen, if you look at the Caltrans construction along the 10 freeway, the red line is a significantly longer trip from going east to west, if you're going from like Eastland over to the Civic Center. And so we're looking at how we can modify that. And so the staff for MV Transit is going back and looking at ways that we can reduce some redundancies, because we have a couple areas where the red line and the blue line are going in the same areas and covering some of the same spots. And one of the reasons why the green line is so popular is because it also picks up in front of Cameron, so from the south end of town up to our school system. But for this, I'm going to focus on our Dial-A-Ride program and alternatives to that. Our current guidelines for our Dial-A-Ride system are seniors 55 plus and individuals with disabilities. The program offers transportation within the West Covina city limits and 3 miles outside of the city for medical appointments. It's $1 each way, which is $2 round trip. And in order to schedule a Dial-A-Ride transportation, you would call MV Transit Dispatch, and there are 3 different ways that you can get service. So there's same-day service, and that's upon availability, next-day service, and then there's a subscription service or standing order. So let's say that you have a series of appointments at Kaiser Baldwin Park. That would be something that you could set up a subscription service or a standing order for. So MV did a system analysis for us, and they're showing that a cost per person for our traditional Dial-A-Ride is $22.95. So obviously that's kind of a staggering cost. And remember that while we offer ambulatory, which is people who can walk and get around, we do offer the ADA transportation, which is definitely a need. So those needing wheelchair support can get a ride through our system. We're doing about 1,340 trips per month, and that was for fiscal year 16-17. And they did an average of 2.4 miles for our average trip length, and the shortest trip was less than 1 mile, and longest trip being 9.8 miles, and our city is 16 square miles. So because we have a high population of users that are ambulatory and not needing a traditional ADA ride, which is what paratransit offers, the city could use alternative transportation to do a few things. We could expand the service to coincide with our regular fixed route shuttle service hours, and we could add Saturday and Sunday service, which is what we don't have, and we could offer that for paratransit, those needing ADA accessibility. Or we could offer Saturday and Sunday to general population, or a combination of thereof. So some different options that staff looked at, and we did conference calls with Uber and Lyft, and as well as our MV Transit contacts for our taxi and cab model. We want to talk about Uber specifically right here. So staff reached out, and there's a couple different programs that Uber offers. And the one that was recommended by the Uber rep to us would be the Uber Business Pilot. Now, I would like to make the caveat that when we spoke with our MV Transit staff, they asked us if why we weren't going to use Uber Health, and staff hadn't heard of Uber Health. We weren't told about Uber Health. And one of the programs that's listed in the staff report is Uber Central, and that's something that's not being offered in the United States, so that's not a program that we could do at this time. And so I don't know if Uber Health is only being piloted in certain areas. This particular one is being offered in Dallas, and Uber mentioned that they had done work with MV Transit before, so they're aware of that company as well. They're a large company. So keep in mind there could be other products out there, but this is the product that Uber recommended to our organization. Riders are identified with the existing Dial-A-Ride program, so if we were going to do a pilot with them, we would identify riders that we would consider top candidates. So when I say top candidates, it would be, we may have somebody that lives in a particular area that's just tough to get to with a shuttle bus. Maybe it's further south and we don't have a lot of rides coming out of that area, or further north. We may have a particular clientele that just, there's no matter what we do, we can't satisfy that person in a ridership base. Constant complaints, you know, too hot, too cold, too far, whatever it might be. I have to wait too long. You never know what it might be. The dispatch and the staff knows who these clients are and what would work best. So we would identify who our riders would be. The riders under Uber Business would self-schedule trips through the app. So you can see that for our older seniors, that might be a problem, because some of the seniors, as tech savvy as our seniors have become, some of them just aren't simply interested in it, or maybe they have conditions where they can't see very well, and so it's harder for them to book those. That is one of the downfalls of this particular program, where some others you may be able to still call and dispatch rides directly. One of the other downfalls is that it's a direct bill to the city, so there is no shared cost per ride. So in an ideal world, we'd be able to say we still want to offer the $1 fare, but then the city would then subsidize whatever the additional cost is for the ride, just like we do now with our Dial-A-Ride. There is no way to do that. There's no app, there's no system like that where they could enter a code. They go onto an app to order the ride, but there's no additional services offered under that to be able to discount the ride. What we could do is add a stipend. So we could say each ride, we're willing to pay a maximum of $4 or $5, and then anything beyond that, the rider would have to pay for. We could also do a stipend amount, like a blanket amount of $100, $50, whatever the city would like to do in that person's account, and then anything beyond that, the rider would then be responsible for. And one of the ways that you could also limit costs, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about and have never ordered an Uber before, there's different levels of a ride. So you have an Uber Pool, an Uber X, and an Uber Premium, right? We wouldn't want to be offering premium rides in a Mercedes or a Corvette. We want to take a more economical ride. So those are things you can do to limit. Rides vary $4 to $20, and I say $4 to $20 because it depends on how far you're going. It depends if you're going in rush hour. A $50 ride would be a premium vehicle, and we're not even going in that direction. One of the positives about the program is that a pilot program can be activated very quickly. So it's a matter of the city entering into a non-disclosure agreement as we're working out details of the program, and then we get a credit card on file or an ACH on file, and then they can work through that whole process. So as far as barriers to entry, they're low in terms of getting started with the program, but there are some negatives and downsides as far as the direct bill aspect and the fact that there is no behind the scenes phone call that they could make to schedule that ride. How a Lyft pilot would work, and this is what's happening in the city of Monrovia through the Go Monrovia program, is that we could actually have a code identified with the city of West Covina. Now, if you're not aware of what Go Monrovia is, it's a program with Lyft that they've used to supplement their Dial-A-Ride program, but what they've done is they've offered it to everyone. It's not just residents, it's anybody who comes within the city of Monrovia, and they feel that that's a beneficial thing for the city because it's promoting shop and play in Monrovia. And there is some truth to that, and their rides have tripled, so therefore the costs have also skyrocketed. One of the other things, and I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, is that Monrovia is unique in that they have a county contract, so they have additional sites that they go to. Their Dial-A-Ride offers transportation to the Arcadia Mall, to the City of Hope, the unincorporated areas of the city of Bradbury, and then they have a transfer station at the Target in the city of Duarte. So there are a couple nuances there. But one of the things that Lyft offers that I do find appealing is that there's a concierge service that where a rider who is not going to be tech savvy or has no interest in getting on an app can just simply call MV Transit, say I want to book a ride through Lyft, and then MV Transit Dispatch can go in a behind the scenes platform, and it's still the Lyft app, however, it's behind the scenes. So they can, all they would need is a phone number to contact the rider to let them know that their vehicle is on their way. So right now, when you order a Lyft or an Uber, you get real time. You can see it on your phone, you can see the ride dispatched, you can see how long they're coming, you can see them driving down the street, and you can see the make and model of your vehicle. So there would be obviously less functionality for somebody who's doing it through Lyft Concierge, but there's still that real-time tracking and service offered from our dispatch. The city can set the limit on ridership. We can limit it to residents. We can open it up to the general community to promote economic development. We can set our parameters. So there's a geofence that we would set up the same way that we set it up right now with Dial-A-Ride. We could still have the same parameters 3 miles outside of the city limits for medical appointments, and then we can see how those rides go. The costs, again, vary $4 to $20 depending upon the time and location, and if you're going, as far east or as far west, north and south. And direct billing is available to the city. So with a code, they could enter the code and immediately get the $1 fare. So no matter where they're going, we as a city would be subsidizing that fare above and beyond the dollar, just like we do now with our traditional Dial-A-Ride program. The user would only see the $1 fare. They wouldn't see the behind the scenes. The driver doesn't know the difference. The driver simply is picking up somebody on the lift, and that's it. So for that, it's turnkey in that sense, and so there's no difference in who's using the system. And again, the pilot program can be activated quickly. One of the things I do want to mention also about Lyft is that there's a back-end reporting that they submit, and that is as we're getting into the TNCs, the taxi and cab, that is a concern for staff. We don't know how that quite would work, and we would have to vet that out, but obviously the city of Monrovia has taken that leap with Lyft because we have to do annual transportation reporting for our transportation funds, so we would definitely have to work out those logistics. Under the taxi and cab pilot, that would be something that MV Transit would manage and run streamlined. Riders are identified in the existing Dial-A-Ride program, as mentioned in the others. MV Transit would actually schedule the trips, which would be manual. So one of the downsides to this is that there is no real-time data. There is no tracking. You call a taxi, you have to hope and pray that the taxi actually shows up, and then the only way that you know that the taxi didn't show up is when you get the call that says, my taxi didn't show up. So you can see from that standpoint, there's a concern where you have somebody going to a dialysis appointment and now they don't make the dialysis appointment and we have no idea, somebody just didn't show up and pick up for the ride. Now MV Transit has a good relationship and we have contract providers. We've offered taxi vouchers and people have shown up. So we haven't had any issues to speak of. It's a $36 a month subscription and that's just a one-time fee every month. It's not per rider or a certain amount of rides. That's just the basic, and then you pay the $12.34 on average per passenger. So they've done the average rides that are being taken. One of the positives from this is that MV Transit would monitor, manage, and reconcile the service. So right now, they completely do all of our annual reporting as it is with the program, so they would just streamline and add this into the fold. One of the things that you can add on to this, which becomes very costly, and this was one of the additions to your staff report today, is that originally when they told me that it would be $10,000 for the software, that was because they were under the impression that if a neighboring city or close by a contract had that 1MV app or the back-end platform to Trapeze, which is what they use to do the tracking of the rides, that it would be less money, right? So kind of like when you're using Microsoft or whatever, you have so many licenses, you get a discount. So that's not the case. It would be anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000, and $50,000 is where you basically get the full app where you're being able to really track the usership, et cetera. Now, I want to say that the $25,000 to $50,000 software is before you get to 1MV. It's actually interesting. It's more money to do that, to talk to our current software with MV Transit, than if we just wait until January 2019 to do 1MV. 1MV is a cloud-based software. It's far less money. They can't tell me exactly, but it's far less money than $25,000 or $50,000. So long term, if you're going to do the TNC, you would want to transition to 1MV because that's actually where it looks and feels like an Uber or a Lyft app where you're really being able to track the rides. Currently, they have used that program with one of the colleges at La Jolla. and they have found really successful rates of ridership, especially at night and on the weekends where they don't want people to be drinking and driving. So that's something that's worked well for them. So the process is basically this. So if we're interested in doing a pilot, whether it's with Uber, Lyft, or a taxi and cab model, we would want to launch with a focus group. We would collect the data. We would analyze the usage. We would want to know, is our ridership growing? Now, there is a false sense sometimes with the ridership growing because, of course, depending upon the popularity of it, your rides increase because just of the sheer fact that I don't have to do a shared ride per se, right? I'm going to take a taxi and cab versus taking a dial-a-ride with several other people, a traditional shuttle bus. And then we would want to project efficiencies. So did this help manage our capacity? Are we actually maximizing our ADA rides on a traditional shuttle bus and using the alternative model for our ambulatory passengers? Did it lower the city's costs? Did it improve performance? Are people happier? I can tell you I don't get many complaints. So from that standpoint, I think that MV Transit is doing a phenomenal job, but I think there is something to be said, and I continue to use this example because it is the common complaint. I call, I need a ride for dialysis at 8 a.m. the next morning because my doctor says I need to be there. Well, I don't want to sit on a bus when I have to go for dialysis or come back and I've had this treatment for several hours. I don't feel well. Now I have to sit and wait for my bus and wait for other people to get dropped off. And my 8 a.m. appointment next day is a peak ride, is on demand. It's highly in demand. So that's something that we have a hard time making happen. We have our 5 dial-a-ride units, and if everybody wants an 8 a.m. trip, we just can't make it happen. And then beyond that, we're going to assess further investment. So do we want more automation or less? And I say more or less because automation is great until you can't access it because you don't have an app, and now how do I make the ride? So there's got to be a happy medium. And will the public embrace this? And I have to say the public probably will embrace this. That's an easy one, right? So the next steps. Yes, let's do this. We need to identify the pilot group, and that would be working with MV Transit. Notify the pilot group. And then whether or not we want to use Uber, Lyft, or TNC, it makes no difference in terms of how we're going to roll it out, except for just that we need to pick a program. And then we begin the service, and we want to operate the pilot for a minimum of 6 months. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
I want to thank staff, for getting to this, and I know, I appreciate the council supporting bringing this stuff back up, because obviously as someone who isn't driving and using Uber, when I look at the cost, $22, I can get to Ontario for $22, and so it's like, for a dial-a-ride, it didn't make any sense, bang for the buck, and, time-wise. Looking at this, I do have concerns about the taxi, the TNC model, especially because of the upfront costs and stuff. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know about Uber Health. I don't know if that's a pilot program or whatever, but I do know, and having talked to Monrovia, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to shuttle people to, the Arcadia Mall, to stores outside of West Covina. I don't want to do that. But, if there's ways that we can, and I'm kind of leaning towards the Lyft model of being able to get people service quicker, get them there more comfortably. And my understanding is Lyft they actually do also have trained certain people, or some of their drivers, on how to deal with the kind of medical visits stuff. And I don't think Uber's done that yet, or maybe they are with Uber Health, but I know that Lyft has done that with drivers. And so, I think we should do some kind of model and at least explore this, especially, I think it will end up being popular. Lyft is one that you can actually, don't have to have the app for, you can call, which is a big plus if your phone doesn't work. And so I do think, we should explore it, because I think, when you talk about $4 to $20 a ride, that's cheaper than what we're getting for the dollar right now. And with our Prop C money. And as you said, our ridership is going down. I do want to address some of the other shuttle stuff in a second, but I do think the DA and the dial-a-ride stuff, we should go ahead and go forward with a model that allows people that kind of flexibility and that better service than what they're getting now, and cheaper at this point. So at least that's my thought.
Councilman Marshall.
Thank you. So I think besides Monrovia, another city has done it recently. I don't remember if it's Claremont or one of the others, but there is another city that's done it in the San Gabriel Valley.
I'm not sure about San Gabriel. They named 40 other, well, not, they didn't name 40 other cities. They have 40 other partnerships, but including that is recently Santa Monica.
Santa Monica does it, but I think there's one or two others, and I can find that out. I think, or you can call Foothill Transit. They've got a listing of it. My questions on this are, now, one of the cities, I think, has totally stopped using dial-a-ride, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that, but I think they just said, you know, we're doing everything.
I think that's not
No, they're still doing it.
Yeah, I would like to clarify, no, dial-a-ride still has a place because of the ADA ride, so I want to be very clear about that. Right. One of the things that Lyft, and admittedly so, they can't guarantee an ADA accessible vehicle. Right. So that's one of the drawbacks, but it's definitely not to say we can't do it, but it's saying there's still a place for dial-a-ride in the traditional sense, and they have a county contract with which convolutes that because they have a demand to provide that, correct?
Right, and then I think you had also mentioned if you've got neighboring cities doing it, it can change the costs and how they operate that way. My question is the Prop C funds and how much we're currently spending to do this pilot. Do we have the Prop C funds to continue to do what we're doing plus the addition? And do we know how much Monrovia has spent and what their numbers are compared to our numbers?
So we would not be using Prop C funding. We currently use Prop C and Measure R for our program. We would need to use Measure M or Measure R accounts. And so we have currently between the two accounts, we have almost $400,000 remaining in fund balance for those. And I will tell you, I mean, we're spending combined over $1 million. I do not know the cost of Monrovia's program, so I apologize. But she did say that they were going back to council for more appropriation. And when I did talk to the Lyft rep, we were told that one of the reasons, obviously, and the staff from Monrovia explained that because their rides are 50 cents, right? That's also, and because they opened it up to non-residents, that drove the ridership. And so that perception that you're actually more successful, well, yes and no, because your ridership, it's inflated on some level because the newness and the popularity, but your costs are going up, obviously, when you're having out of residency, right? So you're enabling anybody to come into town to use it.
I actually have used it because, you know, COG is in Monrovia, and you can do that, and you get that, and you can go, you know, quite a distance actually without, you know, just paying the 50 cents. So I mean, part of it is their model is they let everybody use it, and you know, and that's fine if they want to do that. But I'm not sure I'm ready to do that. I think I'd like to focus on the population we have for dial-a-ride. You know, that's what I'd prefer to do.
I just want to make sure I bring up a point. We're having a discussion about Measure M, Measure R funds. Do remember that those funds are utilized for a lot of street projects in town. So repaving, street lights, and a lot of other uses too. So if you use these funds for this project, that would take away from those other projects as well.
Right, and that's what I was looking at because, and I'm not positive, but as I said, I think another city has started to do this, but they're not spending as much as they used to on dial-a-ride to make up that difference, so.
I can ask Kelly to come up and he might have perspective. I mean, he spoke with the Metro rep and we were explicitly told to use Measure M and Measure R funds. So we would have to theoretically, because we're using Measure R funds to supplement along with Prop C, we would have to scale back. And I mean, our contract with MV Transit is up in March. We have 2 one-year renewal options. So my thinking is that between now and then, if we're launching, depending upon the, you know, we're going to use a test pilot, right, of a select amount of riders. And then we would look at renegotiating in March, depending upon what our ridership is and what the trend is. Because it's going to really depend on how many riders we have using the concierge service too, right? So if we have, there's still a need for the dispatch and all that, so there's still an added benefit that MV Transit brings.
Councilman Tom.
Thank you. I have I guess a number of questions that just to try and understand. The Go West shuttle is the fixed route thing that everybody goes on. The Dial-A-Ride is for seniors and persons with disabilities, and so it's more individual. So, and I see the annual contract figures here, $108,000 for Go West shuttle, $24,000 for Dial-A-Ride. So another program, I guess I have two concerns. One is I can't really tell. My first question is this to add on additional costs on top of what we're already spending, or is it to supplant or replace some of the Dial-Ride funds? So that's one, if you could just keep that in your mind. And then also, it's unclear to me in terms of the individual cost comparisons with Uber and Lyft, what we're comparing it to in terms of cost per ride. So that's the second question in terms of comparing Uber to Lyft. It's not clear what the actual itemized costs are. So those are the first two questions about just overall costs. Is it supplanting or supplementing or supplanting? And then I guess the other question is, I know that some individual rides happen already, and is this just to make it easier for people who don't like to share rides on a shuttle? I mean, if that's not really a good reason to spend more money, if it's people who just like, oh, I don't want to share it with two other people and I just want an individual ride. So I guess that's my concern too, is like, yeah, we're making someone happier, but is that the best use of our resources to do that? So I'm still a little confused about the cost comparison between the different programs, and is this more money that we're using, or is it going to replace some of the Dial-A-Ride funding?
So excellent questions, and I think that one of the discussions tonight is whether or not we want to scale back service and use some of our existing funds through Measure R, then the other funds we have is Measure M, and if we want to use what's available in fund balance to do the pilot. And so we had no expectation. We had no expectation of whether or not we were just outright replacing it on some level or whether or not we were supplementing. I think there's a happy I don't think that we're ever going to replace outright Dial-A-Ride. So I think in our minds, it was right now, it's a matter of which direction does the council want to go, what are we thinking, and then we can work out all the details moving forward and come back with a firmer cost of like how many people are going to be in that pilot, and then we would get a better idea of cost. The comparison of Uber to Lyft, there really is no there's no difference in cost. It's more of the programmatic aspects. So where Uber Business has no concierge service currently in the United States, Lyft does. So, and the other real big difference is the direct bill. I have no way of giving a rider an app to be able to say, this is what I want to do. They can book their rides, but they can't call me for a ride if they're not app savvy. And then they're gonna get a free ride until I no longer say it's free. So if we're going to do a pilot, we can definitely do that and set up in the parameters with Uber and say each rider that we're gonna choose, let's say we choose 10 riders, and that's low, but let's just say we chose 10 riders and we gave them all $1,000, and once that $1,000 was gone, they have to be responsible for the additional rides. So that's one way you could do it with them, but there is no code like Lyft has to where they just go, they put it in, it's $1 each way, and then the city just pays the difference. So if I can add the third, I don't think that we were looking at alternative transportation. I mean, maybe Councilman Spence can articulate his request to bring it back, but I know as he and I have had discussions about him using public transportation, and there's an ease and a low barrier to entry when you're using Uber and Lyft, and you could be standing on a random street corner and get a ride versus having a fixed house and knowing where you're at. It's all GPS located. As far as why we're doing this, I wouldn't look at an alternative model simply because I was trying to replace the crabby customer. It's more of on MV Transit side, and this existed in a previous agency that I was at and handling ridership. When you have a resident utilizing shared transportation, it's sometimes just cost benefit for you to use that taxi, which we currently do. It's not something we offer on a regular basis. So you couldn't say, I'd like to take a dial-a-ride and I want a taxi delivered to my house. That's not how the rides are dispatched. But as I said, some people, for mobility reasons, for maybe they have a specific disability that just makes it more difficult for them to get in and out, and maybe there's somebody with special needs. We have people with special needs riding our shuttle and our dial-a-ride, and maybe they have a specific condition that's just difficult for them to be around other people. We still want to be able to provide that person with transportation, but it's just not cost effective for time, energy, and actual physical dollars that we're spending to give that person a ride on we're freeing up a spot on our shuttle where we can just send that person in a taxi, and that taxi ride may be more than $22, but it's just overall a cost benefit to send them that way.
So it says compared to conventional transportation at over $10 per ride. So I'm trying to figure out, is there some itemized estimate of what the cost for the dial-a-ride program cost per passenger is, and is that the $10? And then is it 20? Is it 22? I thought that was a tax.
Yeah. No. The error that was on there was that originally I had written that it was $22.95 for the taxi, as we currently dispatch under dial-a-ride, because that's how it was explained. But that was an error. It's actually our dial-a-ride customers, that's how much it costs, $22.95. So the taxi, when we dispatch a taxi, on average, the cost is $12.34 per passenger. Could be more if they're sitting in traffic and waiting to go, east.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'm kind of confused. Okay, I know you say so much. I'm kind of lost. My understanding, the dial-a-ride, the shuttles, service, basically is a benefit for our senior citizen. Can go around, in our city, to go to the doctor clinic or to go to the supermarket, and they make an appointment, and that's what this benefit about. Now I listen to you, because we have about $400,000, another $600,000 from the Measure M, Measure R, and we have $1 million in the grant. So maybe we need to kind of digest. So we want to use this alternative, and the transportation service. But it's really that's necessity for our city to do it. So it's a subsidy for people. People can just call the Uber, if they want, or call the Lyft themselves, or they have. So why we need? I'm just confused. Why? Hold on. Why we need to do this? And then we have a full hill transit. And then you can provide good service for us. So my kind of question is, my understanding. For all those ADA senior citizens living independently, they have nobody can help them, then we need to provide some kind of transportation for those senior citizens. And for the people who has the money, they can call their Uber, call somebody to give them a lift. Well, my question is why we need to do this service, and do we have any liability if we don't provide this for some people? And what is the age restriction? Is this for everybody to call forward, or this is just something additional transportation we want to help the people living in our city? And then how much money we're going to subsidize and do this?
Let me try to take all those. So why would be, as a little old lady called me one day and got very upset with me when she asked why she could not get an on-demand ride. She had a medical appointment. There were no rides available through the Dial-a-Ride program. And I explained to her at this time, and this was probably a year ago, that unfortunately the way our system is set up, and this is many Dial-a-Ride programs, is that it's a shared transportation system. It's a subsidized transportation system. So I recommended to her that if she needed her on-demand ride at the specific time, that she needed to contact an Uber or a Lyft or use Foothill Transit or have a family or friend take her. And that was very offensive to her. I wasn't trying to be offensive. It was simply saying these are the parameters of what our program provides. And what I can tell you is that as we have an aging community, we have a lot of youth in our community, but we do have an aging community. On fixed income, transportation, taxis can be expensive. Uber and Lyft have found a niche in the community to provide an affordable ride. What I'm advocating for, if anything, is that if we are going to look at this model, that you use the parameters that we currently have. I would like to keep it simple and work our way out, because I think as well placed as Monrovia's is in terms of them wanting to create mobility and really create that sense of place and come to my community and shop and play, it's extremely expensive. And if we're trying to start off simple and work our way out, I think that would be more beneficial, because we do have a lot of riders in that 55 plus and those with disabilities who could benefit from an on-demand ride through an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi cab model, without opening it up with the floodgates in terms of turning over the checkbook, as I've heard people say, and just writing a blank check. We don't have that capability. I would still leave the fare the same way it is, and then you figure it out from there. So do we have a need? Of course we have a need, because we have a lot of people in need of medical appointments. Is our system broken? No, our system functions just fine. We rarely get complaints, but the complaints that we do are the regular medical appointments and the on-demand service need. Liability-wise, of course, we would work with our city attorney to make sure that all contracts and agreements, and we would have the riders that are in the pilot program have to consent and waive away liability. Of course, anybody can sue for anything, but ultimately we would be as protected as we can be.
So basically, okay, we still have 55. Okay, orders for the senior citizen, okay, for this as a priority, or are we, for your proposal, are we going to go open up for a lot of residents? So this is only for 55 senior. So this is something assist for the, like you say, they dial right and they don't have, okay, right away. So you want to have a demand so they can get, okay, to the place they want to. Okay, they can use, okay, this service. That's my understanding. And the difference, they pay $1, round trip $2, the difference, they will subsidized by this major M and major R. Am I right?
Correct. I would start it off limited to the current parameters that we have, 55 plus, those with special needs. And then I would still keep it with the same parameters, 3 miles outside of the city for medical appointments, and see what you end up having with the pilot. And I would not open it up to the entire population, because no matter what, you're going to get an increased ridership.
My last question, okay, and then how many times they can use this service? Okay, weekly.
So the beauty of this is that the city can set whatever parameters. So if you as a body, the city council, have a flavor for us to move forward with, whether it be Lyft, Uber, or a taxi and cab model, Kelly and I will go back to the respective party and we will work out whatever agreement and work out the details, and we will look at our budget and stay with the parameters, because the beauty of the limits is that we can say we have, let's say the city council says, I want to spend $150,000 on this pilot and that's all I'm willing to do. So we'll go back and look at the number of rides, we'll work with MV Transit, we'll work with whatever party you want to do, and we'll say, here's the amount of rides we're willing to offer, and it'll be flagged in their system. So they can continue to book, but it will notice them that they no longer have any more rides available.
Okay. Do we have the $1 million in our bank already, or not yet?
What $1 million?
You told me the $400,000 plus $600,000 all add together almost $1 million. You just mentioned.
That's the cost of our program. Currently, we are spending $1.2 million on our transportation program.
So, just to answer Mayor Pro Tem Wu's question, Foothill Transit is a fixed route, so they don't go door to door. It's only fixed route. And time can be longer because of it's a fixed route. The other thing that we need to be taking a look at, so one of the biggest problems with wellness programs for Kaiser, for all your managed care companies, is getting people to the doctor. Seniors miss, I think it's 40-some-odd% of their doctor's appointments. It's huge. People call, yeah, they'll make an appointment for them, but it doesn't happen because they don't have rides. Kaiser now is paying some of these costs. They're paying for taxis. Other managed care companies are. I think we need to be looking at them to help with this program. If they're going to Kaiser Baldwin Park and they live in West Covina, they might be willing to pay some of these fees. Same with other managed care companies in California. So I think we need to look at that. I like the idea. I think we need a little bit more information. As I suggested, there's some people from Foothill that have been working with other cities on this, and they've got the information on this, so I'd like you to contact them. But one of the biggest problems that, as you said, and that I've heard from other cities, is not all disabled people can take an Uber or Lyft because vehicles aren't big enough. They don't have the strap-ins. They don't have the lift gates. So you still need some kind of a dollar ride program for them. Number two, is scheduling, because there are only so many dollar ride vehicles and they can't be in two places at the same time. And that's why this is a good program. But I think we need to get a little more idea on what other cities have found that have done this with ridership and cost before I'm willing to say I want to spend more funds from Measure M and Measure R.
So I think that I'm very sympathetic to this idea of getting seniors to their doctor's appointments. That totally makes sense. But I'm wondering, but we don't tell people that they're limited for the dial rides to particular destinations, do we? Oh, we do.
Part of the dial ride parameter is 3 miles outside of West Covina.
Right, but I mean, like, can it be for like shopping, or does it have to be for medical appointments?
Our guidelines say medical appointments. Yeah. I will tell you that riders have been taken to a grocery store. Okay. That's not something that is, you know, it's one of those where if they say they're going to a medical appointment and they pull up and it's the grocery store, they're not going to make
it. I mean, if it is limited in some way to like medical appointments and things that we care about and getting people there, then that makes a lot more sense to me. I can see the value of something like this. If it was just 55 and older, go wherever you want, like there's a number of people who come to our city council meetings who are 55 and older and be like, I don't want to drive. And if it's as convenient where I get a chaperone to take me to the city council meeting, why not just use that for $1 or whatever it is? It's like, and are we benefiting, you know, is that like a true good use of the money? So, but if it can be limited in some way towards those kinds of things, obviously that's like a really good service, I think. So anyway, those are just my thoughts that I would be concerned about if we're going to spend more, if it's going to cost more money.
And I would just reiterate that the city council can set whatever parameters it so chooses on such riders or destinations or dollar amounts.
One last question. I know we're using, Measure M and Measure R for other funding. So I'd like to get an idea of this next 12 months, how much you think we are going to use, and will we have any additional monies that we can fund a pilot program?
I mean, just obviously I'm not a guy that wants to spend lots of money, but my frustration in this is, seeing how much we're spending, per ride and per mile, and that there's ways that we can provide service with that money, dedicated monies, that's better than what we're doing now, or more flexible, or could get more people, to their appointments on time. That's where I'm kind of coming from. That's my frustration, having, got to experience all the wonders of public transportation and mobility that the council seems to love, and I get to ride and do. But that's really where I'm coming from on this, and I'd like to move that. I do want to talk about something about the Go West shuttle in a second, but I'd like to move that we go forward and get more information on the lift aspect of it, and to start doing a pilot program within the parameters of our current dollar ride program, without changing those.
Okay, no, I would second that motion but I also make a statement. I do see a need for this in a way, because I do recall when I was out campaigning a few years back, I went to this house and this little old lady, I think she was in her 80s. She just pulled up and she was just getting out of, it was Uber or one of them, that she called. It was on her own time, they made her own money that she paid for it, but they do use it. Because we find there's a lot of seniors out there that they want to live at home. They don't want to be in one of these communities, and they don't drive. And they don't have immediate family right there to do it. So I think this is a necessity. I think we should move forward with looking into it and bringing back with more information, how we can move forward with it. So, like I said, at that time, I would second the motion. So is there any more discussion on it? If not, we have a first and a second. Go ahead.
I'm a little concerned with what the motion was, because you're saying using existing funds. This would be more funds.
No, I didn't say using. Just saying that we'd go forward with a pilot program using the existing dial-a-ride standards. As far as the parameters, what we say you can go to and that kind of stuff. So it'd be the same people that currently use dial-a-ride, that same demographic. That's what I was talking about, because that was like what Mr. Toma was talking about. You know, although I was kind of wondering how many of our people like want to go to the City of Hope, because I don't know if that's possible. You know, if we're doing something that's cheaper than, you know, because City of Hope may be a place where people are going. But anyways, but I, you know, just thinking out off the top of my head. But I just want to see it come back and look at those options.
Are we currently taking people to City of Hope?
No, it's outside of 3 miles, but that's something that the council can change the parameters of dial-a-ride, and you can also, at this point, just change the parameters of the pilot. So if you want to say you want to offer that as the pilot, because obviously that's a more expensive trip even on our shuttle, right? Yeah.
Right.
Actually, you could get there within $20 on the Uber or Lyft. You can get to City of Hope from here. I can do it right now and tell you the exact amount right now.
No, I was saying it's a more expensive ride on our shuttle system.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, that's true. So that's why, I mean, to have that come back, you know, because I do think, you know, I was thinking regionally, the City of Hope is probably one place where we do have people that go to that it may be beneficial to talk about. But anyways, but that's what I'd like to have come back.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, we had a motion, we had a second. Can I have a roll call on that and bring it back?
Spence? Aye. Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye, passes 5-0.
And that was going to come back with the information about how the funds are got.
Yeah, I did have a comment about the shuttle, the Go West shuttle stuff, because, you know, the times I've taken the Go West shuttle, it seems like I was the only person that day that took it. And so, you know, I do know there are times, because like the one in Cameron, you know, during the school times, that's a time where it's backlogged. And so I don't know, have you looked at the ridership over a long period of time? Because to me, it seems like if there's nobody riding between, you know, on some of these shuttles during times, I don't know why we would necessarily offer it. It's hard to tell when they're actually coming, you know, to begin with. I mean, there are a lot of struggles with it. I don't know who's used the shuttle here. Yeah, it's very difficult to know when they're actually going to show up. You know, we could front load that and have more shuttles, you know, during that school time that we know those kids are using it, you know, or, you know, that we know that we got that. Have we looked at that? Because that's where I see where we could reallocate the money that's being spent there and do it more efficiently and better and serve more people.
So we did look at that. We looked at that over the 2-year period, and we can certainly go back and look at data for longer, but that's where we've shown the reduction in the program. And overall, what was concerning to Kelly and I when we looked is that, you know, of course you drop off in the summer, right? Because the Green Line has a strong youth population from the school district. But for example, in the slow month, in 16-17, it was 1,758 rides on the Green Line, and it was only 677 on the Red Line, and 573 on the Blue Line. So that goes back to it's sometimes less than half. So we really need to evaluate, and we've already talked to MV Transit staff about reevaluating and reworking that Blue Line and Red Line, because we're clearly maximizing efficiency on the Green Line, which is ironic because it goes all the way to the south end of town. So we just need to look at how we can better service. We spoke to them about removing stops. So again, there's an area where the Blue Line and the Red Line cross over for a few different stops. And looking at even on areas where they're not duplicated, just taking some out. And maybe the issue is, like I said, when you're coming all the way from Eastland all the way over to the Civic Center, that's a long trek when you're sitting in rush hour traffic. So depending upon which direction you're going, people are like, ugh, I don't want to have to deal with it, right? That's too long. But people who are forced to deal with it because they have no other mode of transportation will look at it, so.
Like 25 on the 488 from, you know, Eastland here too. But anyways, to the mall. But yeah, because that's a concern, because obviously I think we aren't serving people the best we are with the money that we're spending on on that one, especially when you start doing dividing the miles by the cost. I mean, it's, but I think part of it is that people don't know when they're coming, and I don't know how you deal with that. There's an X-Bus app that Foothill, you can tell when Foothill stuff is coming. But it's working much better. It's working much better.
It's actually getting a lot better because we're
better.
just finishing up the new Avail system for our buses.
Yeah, it's getting better. Well, I'll tell you how that works, but it's getting better. It's gotten better. Next bus has got much better. But
another 30 to 45
I'd like to get at some point. I think we got to evaluate that stuff and make changes in the Go West stuff, because I think that's where we can make savings with the Prop C money and find better ways to serve people. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, anyways, thank you.
Okay. And now we're going to move forward with item number 14. Item number 14 is, there was a reconsideration because Mayor Pro Tem, that was for the elected city treasurer and the elected city clerk that we voted on before to have them put on the ballot see if the residents had any, wanted to eliminate them and have the city manager. When we have this, City Attorney, she wants to say something about it.
Just
I want to make sure we do this legally.
Just very briefly. So the Mayor Pro Tem has requested that this item be reconsidered. So the appropriate motion would be to move for reconsideration. If the council acts to reconsider, you don't have to rescind the prior resolutions. You can then determine whether you want to leave them in place or repeal any one or more of them. So the first motion would be to reconsider the action.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Okay, I understand. So this is almost like another may I, right? Can we reconsider, about this? Right, okay. So the reason, I want to bring this up because last time we have a term limit. I pro term limit. I think we should have term limit. But the reason I say no because the current budget issue we have, we're going to spend $9,000 for put this on the ballot. And same thing to this one, and we're going to spend $18,000 to put on this ballot, and this $18,000 basically to do some kind of political, agenda. So I don't think it's worth it in our current budget issue. We should do this. That's why I say we should maybe reconsider about this current issue. Maybe in the next year or maybe in the future we have a much healthier. We can bring this back. So that's the reason. To bring this for our city council, member to reconsider. See, this is a good idea. I'm thinking about this is the time. We shouldn't put this so we can save this $18,000. So I want to make a motion to reconsider. And have bring back for our city council to talk.
Okay, now. Mayor Pro Tem made a motion for reconsideration for the vote. Okay, so now I want to make sure it's very clear. Is his reconsideration is just for his vote or for the whole vote that we voted on it? The whole vote. So if we reconsider it, then we have to do the whole vote over again. Is that correct? But also, I'm looking at this right here before we go through it, that I noticed last time we did it, we had them both on the same resolution for this city clerk and the city clerk and the city treasurer as one. But I'm looking on here, we have them split up.
Well, we'd
have to make two resolutions, won't we?
Yeah, let me be clear. They were always in separate measures and separate resolutions, but it was all moved as one item the last time. So if the action is to reconsider, you can certainly take them up one at a time. Or you can take them up by position if you like.
Okay, because I'm going to respect his decision that he wants to reconsider it. I don't have a problem with him wanting to reconsider it. My position hasn't changed, so I don't mind if we can reconsider it and then bring it back up for a vote again tonight. So we have a first and a second.
Okay.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Spence. No. Toma.
Aye.
Warshaw.
No.
Wu.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes 4-1.
3-2.
3-2. I'm sorry. Who said no? You said no? You said, okay, 3-2. Okay. Now that's been reconsidered. So now what we're doing the consideration on.
May I suggest, Mr. Mayor, if I could, the first.
I'd like to move that we approve the language. that we approve the language again as we did before. Now that it's been reconsidered, he can, obviously, Mr. Wu can change his vote, but I'd like to move that we vote on the original
Yeah, it would just be to uphold the prior.
It would be to adopt these two things again, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to adopt them again.
Not adopt them again?
No, you just have to affirm them.
Affirm them, yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any more discussion? If not, may I have a roll call, please?
Spence. Toma.
No.
Warshaw.
Aye.
Wu.
Nope.
Johnson.
Aye. Measure passes 3-2. Now we have to talk about the argument. What I would like to do, I had a conversation with Councilman Spence if he would be willing to write the argument for this. Setting all differences aside, he knows what he's doing and he knows how to do it. And I believe he'd be the best person to do it. So I know he said he'd consider it, so I'm hoping he still would consider doing it. If it would, I'd like to make a motion that we have Councilman Spence write the argument for this.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Let's have a roll call, please. There was just direction? Okay, just direction. No objection, we said direction.
That's fine. Just because of the deadline, we will have that item on the agenda for the 17th. And if you'd like, you can distribute the argument at that meeting. All right.
Were there any objections? No.
Mr. Mayor, if you could indulge me just for a moment, I want to respond to a question that came up earlier.
Yes, please do so.
While we were talking about landscape districts, I looked into the issue of individual personal expenditures or personal contributions. Mr. Spence, you are correct that there cannot be limitations on use of your own personal funds, either loan or just flat out contributions. They do have to be reported, and that's consistent with state and federal law. So, so that I don't have to worry you over the weekend or over the holiday with it, or contact you or get in your hair. So now you know the answer to that, and I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
So that clear. Now, is there any council member wishing to report on an AB 1234 conference or meetings? Seeing none, do you have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. What did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. Any comments?
I didn't know, I don't know if I need to do this as a Mother May I or not, but a bunch of manufacturers are trying to do a manufacturing day on October 5th in 2018, and I know we have a manufacturer, at least our batteries, we have a battery manufacturer here, right? And maybe the tow truck thing will be open maybe one of these years. And, but I think it would be, you know, I don't know if it needs to be a Mother May or something, but to have our economic development deal with, you know, celebrating manufacturing and in West Covina and that kind of stuff.
Is this like a manufacturing week?
It's a manufacturing day. It's a manufacturing day.
And they want specific.
And they do stuff, and they try to hook up manufacturing in schools and things like that. And so I don't know if that needs to be a Mother May I or.
To do what? Just like
celebrate
a
manufacturing. Celebrate a manufacturer in your city. Well, no, it's actually it's a more of a program. They try to get them to do an open house, and so that people can see this manufacturing going on in California, that kind of stuff. And
we can have the staff contact the manufacturers if they wish to participate in something like that.
Okay, I'll send you the email.
Okay, please do.
Thank you.
Any other comments? City Manager.
Just because there was discussion about the subject, I want to know if we're assigning the attorney to do legal work with regards to the maintenance districts being converted to HOAs, because there will be a cost to do that.
If we're,
I don't think that we should do it unless someone from the audience, you know, says, hey, I'm interested in doing this, and they live in one of these maintenance districts. If they are, then we should be looking at. But if there is no interest.
And I would reflect that if we do get a request, and there should be consideration of the council, then does that district get paid for that legal fees too?
I mean, it sounds like it's highly improbable to me. And so if someone wants to start some research and send us an example that it has been done somewhere, that I think then it might be worth looking into. But just from the sound of it, I have a hard time imagining that is a realistic thing that can be done. But if someone gives me an example, someone who's done it, then yeah, let's spend the money to research it.
I'll delete the email I just sent to myself.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, as I'm in the real estate business, and if without a builder put it together at the beginning, it would be impossible to put so many people together, agree with something and what they have to pay. And then they have a hired HOA management, and it costs a lot of money. And plus, they have elected president, their treasurer, this and that. It's almost like you set up a new city. It's not going to happen.
Okay, we're back to, if there's no other comments, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have motion, we're now adjourned.